It's your job to dream of whatever you want.
Yeah. That's what we're doing.
Couple of names you won't see at the CMA Awards Wednesday night on ABC. Florida Georgia Line and Lee Rice. FBO Tyler Hubbard tested positive for COVID-19. He's quarantining in a tour bus in his driveway. Lee Rice tested positive over the weekend, so both had to drop out of planned performances at the Country Music Awards show. Get ready for some drama on tonight's Bachelorette.
I need the Bachelorette. Of course, there's drama.
Tasha Adams steps in for Claire Paul, who leaves the show after finding a fiance in the first 3 episodes. Now it's Adam's turn to find love.
There's some amazing relationships that form, and I don't know, you might cry, you're gonna laugh, you're gonna have all the feels.
Check out her journey starting tonight on ABC.
Well, we're kind of getting in.
Position number 1. Her new album, Position, debuts atop the Global Album Chart. It's her third number 1 in 2 years and 2.5 months. That's her record. Billboard says it's the fastest any woman has topped the chart with 3 original albums of new music, not counting SoundCloud. Happy birthday to Tracy Morgan. The actor and comedian is 52 today, while Grey's Anatomy star Ellen Pompeo is 51. And that's what's happening in Hollywood. I'm Jason Nathanson, ABC News, Los Angeles.
If you're looking for a quick way to sanitize your home, school, office, or pretty much any large space, well, check out the ULB Disinfectant Fogger Collection by Alphaworks. These things actually mist disinfectant solution at a pretty fast and efficient rate. Now I hardly ever have to use a wipe or a spray bottle. All I do now is fill up the Alphaworks fogger, strap it on, and go. It comes in corded and cordless models, and it's available now on Amazon. Just search Alphaworks fogger in your Amazon search bar and give it a try.
This is Amazon Live. Whether you're watching on a computer, on a phone, on your Fire TV, take a cooking class from your couch. Bam! And pick up products to help you cook like a pro. Work out with a professional trainer without leaving the house. And find what you need to reach your goals. From unboxing the day's hottest deals to reviewing the latest tech bits and chatting with your favorite stars. Pause to take some more questions. You can find it all in one place and have it delivered to your door.
Oh, looks like I got in finally.
Welcome to DMA3. The third hour of Good Morning America. Lunchtime on ABC.
Just sent a message. Mesa Sean's still not in. Looks like I just got in. What? 59 minutes later. Looks like I'm getting in now. On X. By the way, I'm on Xbox. So let's see what it's all about.
Barr issued a new policy to U.S. attorneys, telling them to pursue substantial allegations of voting and vote tabulation irregularities. Investigations of voter fraud would typically begin after state-certified results, weeks after an election. The career official, Richard Pilger, writing, having familiarized myself with the new policy and its ramifications, I must regretfully resign from my role as director of the Election Crimes Branch. And now, President-elect Joe Biden's team is threatening legal action if the General Services Administration fails to formally recognize the election results.
It's clear now. There's no mathematical path forward for Trump.
Traditionally, the General Services Administration ascertains the winning candidate, allowing them to access a variety of resources for the transition of power. The Director of National Intelligence says Biden will not receive full intelligence briefings until that happens. The head of the agency, appointed by Trump in 2017, says she has not determined a winner is clear. It comes as President Trump, along with some Republicans, remain defiant about the election results, even though they presented no credible evidence of voter fraud.
The U.S. surpassing a staggering 10 million COVID-19 infections, the highest number of reported cases in any nation. In the past week, roughly 74 Americans were diagnosed every minute.
We have reached a very dangerous phase in the pandemic.
Every state is reporting an increase in cases.
Governors in California, New York, and other states are now hinting at new restrictions.
Mayor Bill de Blasio with a stern warning to New York City residents.
So we have one last chance to stop a second wave.
That second death wave already crashing over some parts of the country. In El Paso, Texas, hospitals are so full, the state shifted med-surg tents, and in recent days, county officials have added a 10th mobile morgue to help keep up with the climbing death rate.
The Supreme Court hearing arguments this morning on the legality of the Affordable Care Act. 18 Republican-led states are trying to get the ACA thrown out.
21 million Americans will lose health insurance nationwide if the law is struck down. And protections for 54 million...
This is the opening cutscene.
...will be eliminated. Veronica Valdez, a mother of 5, is watching the case closely after enrolling in Obamacare when she lost her job.
Having kids also, you can't take the risk of not having insurance.
The court upheld the Affordable Care Act in 2 previous cases, but now there's a greater conservative majority on the bench after President Trump appointed 3 justices. The law's challengers, including 18 states led by Texas, are urging the court to rule that Obamacare's individual mandate, which requires nearly all Americans to get health insurance or pay a tax, is unconstitutional. The Trump administration has not revealed a replacement for the law if it's overturned.
With record numbers of COVID infections sweeping the country, experts say shoppers are starting to stock up again, fearing another round of shortages in stores in the coming months. Grocery chain Kroger announcing on Monday it's bringing back product limits to help prevent those shortages, limiting purchases of toilet paper, paper towels, disinfectant wipes, and hand soap to 2 per customer. Grocer AJB is also putting limits on paper products and disinfectant wipes in some of its stores again. Last week, on the quarterly earnings call, Clorox announced it is still not at a point where we can fully meet ongoing elevated demand, predicting that the shortages on its wipes and disinfectants will continue through the end of the year. While Experts say it's unclear yet if they'll see shortages. They have seen an early surge in holiday mainstays, especially those that are non-perishable, like boxed stuffings and canned goods. Spices still seeing
Seems like Destiny Item Manager is still down also.
A new tribute to Alex Trebek, coming from the show's executive producer.
He loved this show and everything it stood for.
The game show icon honored during the first episode after his death.
He will forever be an inspiration for his constant desire to learn, his kindness, and for his love of his family.
Fans of the show are looking ahead.
Upon your retirement, who would you like to see replace you?
Betty White.
Several names already in the running for possible replacements include two names previously floated by Trebek: hockey announcer Alex Faust and legal analyst Laura Coates. The New York Post also reporting ABC's George Stephanopoulos is eyeing the job, but a source close to Stephanopoulos denies he's pursuing the role. Another possible successor, Jeopardy champ Ken Jennings, who was recently named consulting producer. Jeopardy will air the final 35 episodes featuring Trebek through Christmas.
TV Live is Ginger D with some really awful photos. I mean, from South Florida. This is Miami Gardens, Florida. North Miami had 8 inches of rain with those bands from Ada, up to nearly 18 inches in Miramar. And so they've been so saturated this year, Miami could end up with the wettest or close to the wettest year on record. There are places in South Florida that are reporting close to 100 inches estimated on radar. Now, Ada really aided those totals, but now it's all the way northwest of Cuba, still throwing some of the tropical moisture in South Florida, and it will. And that's why through Wednesday evening there are flood watches from West Palm through Hollywood. Miami.
Okay, we're in. We're at the EDZ.
But what I really want to focus on is where does it go next? And it's nowhere fast is really the answer. So it's going to take its sweet time, nearly
1 second.
and it's going to inch toward the Gulf Coast through the weekend even, and then the end of the weekend it looks like somewhere along the Gulf Coast. The cone is very large still, so Florida Panhandle all the way to southeastern Louisiana. Just keep an eye on it. The good news is it looks like it gets absorbed a bit as it gets closer, but either way you could end up somewhere along there with 4 to 6 inches of heavy rain, and that can cause some flash flooding.
Good morning and welcome back to GMA. And tomorrow, Chef Jamie Oliver. He's going to be with us live. He's going to show us how to make easy one-pot meals.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, from his new cookbook.
Can't wait for that. And no need to wait any longer. Pop news with Lara. Good morning, Lara.
Hi guys, great to see you all. I love the Green Robin, and great to see you all. We're going to get right to it this morning, beginning with Lil Nas X going Back to the Future in a new teaser clip for his new holiday single with a voice none other than Michael J. Fox. Take a look.
Where do you guys don't go to 2020? Hey, this is not all right.
That is the first single from Lil Nas X in 2 years, and yes, he is paying homage to Back to the Future 3, where Michael J. Fox gets stuck in the Wild Wild West. Lil Nas X's single Holiday drops this Friday, and that's not the only place we'll see Michael J. Fox popping up this week. Almost the entire cast of the 86 sitcom Family Ties will reunite virtually to benefit the actors' fund and COVID-19 relief. The Keegan family set to reminisce about their time filming the beloved show and answer questions from fans. That's happening tonight, guys, on Stars in the House, their YouTube channel. And then, guys, next week, Michael J. Fox is with us. He's joining his...
Trying to see if I could transfer some of my items because I last played on a different character. And all my items are...
Thank you. Also popping this morning, Blue Ivy Carter, the daughter of Jay-Z and Beyonce. She has a new gig, guys. 8 years old, and she is the official narrator for Hair Love. It's the children's audiobook based on the Oscar-winning animated short film Hair Love. The film director and author of the book, Matthew Cherry, sharing a little snippet of Blue in action on Twitter. Take a listen.
Dreamscape presents Hair Love. Matthew A. Cherry. Narrated by
Amy Carter.
So cute. The book features the same storyline as the short, following a dad who has to do his daughter's hair for the first time. If you want to listen to Blue Ivy's narration, the audiobook is available on Audible. And if you want even more of this story, it's being developed into an animated TV show, HBO Max, called Young Love, again by Matthew Cherry. The man is on fire. Congrats, Matthew. And also this morning, some exciting and, I say, adorable news. Science news coming out of Australia. 2 new species, guys, of marsupials were just discovered. They're being called greater gliders, a type of marsupial living in northern and central Australia.
See our first enemies.
Comparisons to police, Pokemon, Muppets, and Beanie Babies. And it's not just every day that one, let alone 2, new species are discovered on our great planet. One of the scientists involved, look at him, one of the scientists involved writing, Australia's biodiversity just got a whole lot richer. And we say it just got a whole lot cuter as well. And then finally this morning, just for this moment in time, let's just forget about social distancing. Let's just forget about personal space. And let's enjoy Arlo, shall we? This giant Bernese Mountain Dog. This is what he got. Getting up close and personal with his mom and dad. Apparently this is a regular occurrence when they're trying to watch TV. Almost 4 million views on TikTok. I love their caption. I don't think you see me. Here I am. Well, we see you. We love you. Just what we need on Tuesday morning.
That's right. As always, you bring it, Lara. Thank you. Thank you, Lara. We're going to move on now to our GMA cover story. Shining a light on pancreatic cancer awareness and action in the wake of Alex Trebek's passing. Dr. Jen Ashton joins us right now. And Jen, Alex actually did, well, it appeared, for quite some time with pancreatic cancer, but it's such a deadly disease.
In general, absolutely, George. You know, it's on track by the year 2025 to be the second leading cause of cancer deaths in the U.S. behind lung cancer. And part of the reason it tends to be so deadly has to do with anatomy. If you look at where the pancreas is located, it sits high up in the abdominal cavity. You can't palpate it or feel it on a physical exam. And by the time it's producing symptoms like yellowness of the skin or eyes or weight loss, it's generally metastasized or spread to an advanced stage.
See, those are 2 of the warning signs.
Yeah, you know, I mean, it can produce vague symptoms. That's part of the problem, and there's no screening test for it. But the good news is there are more treatment options than ever. Mainstays of treatment, depending on stage and the health of the person, of course, surgery, chemotherapy, radiation therapy. But then there's a whole new class of so-called targeted therapies, things using PARP inhibitors, they're called, or checkpoint inhibitors, usually attached to a major cancer center. But in oncology, there is always reason for optimism and hope. And with pancreatic cancer, the same thing applies.
And is there anything people can do to reduce their risk of contracting pancreatic cancer?
Well, some of these things are under our control, so there's a long list. It starts with the basics. Don't smoke. Keep your diet and weight in a healthy range. Exercise is really important. And then the things that we can avoid, limit, or minimize, things like a lot of processed or red meat, heavy alcohol or sugar use, or certain chemical workplace exposures. Again, some of these things under our control, some of them are not. The BRCA1 and 2 mutation that people think about with breast and ovarian cancer also can increase the risk of some cases of pancreatic cancer. So again, Alex Trebek showing us inspiration and increasing awareness even after he's gone.
Jen Ashton, thanks very much.
It is time now to meet the new Bachelorette. After last week's episode ended with an early proposal between Claire and Dale, Tayshia Adams was taking over and looking for love with the remaining contestants. Will Reed got a chance to talk to her. Hey, Will.
Hey there, Michael. What a wild turn of events. Bachelorette number 1 is too good at the show. She falls in love. She leaves. Bachelorette number 2 comes in a pandemic. Tayshia wants everyone to know she's nobody's second choice. It's been an unprecedented season. Bachelorette Claire Crowley leaving the show mid-season, falling in love and getting a ring.
Claire.
Yes.
passing the rose on to the newest bachelorette, Tayshia Adams. She's no stranger to Bachelor Nation.
I'm freaking out.
Making it to the final three in Colton Underwood's season of The Bachelor. And appearing on Bachelor in Paradise. But this time, she's in charge.
I can finally say that I'm the Bachelorette, and that feels so good.
For her, it's about more than finding love.
How do you feel about being the second Black Bachelorette?
And I'm so happy to have the opportunity and the platform that I do to just identify with girls that look like me, that's never seen someone on their screen that represent them.
Getting tapped to step in as a new Bachelorette came as a surprise.
Yeah, I got a phone call from one of the producers. I was actually in bed in my pajamas, reading a book, eating donuts.
What was the experience like of being thrown into the show in a pandemic?
It definitely wasn't normal.
Tayshia wanted to have her own experience. She says at first she had reservations about the remaining men who had been there for Claire.
Being a second choice was obviously not a good thing. It was one of my hesitations. After having conversations with all of the men, they honestly welcomed me with open arms. That made me feel so special and loved, and like they wanted me to be there.
The limo pulls up and there's some new guys who come in. What's going through your head?
I had no idea, and I was not expecting that.
What can you tell us about your journey?
I really allow myself to fall in love, and I really allow myself to experience different relationships that I don't ever think that I would have the opportunity to outside of all of this.
And who should Bachelor Nation keep its eyes on?
To be honest with you, every single one of them. I feel like you have not even seen these guys yet. It's just getting started.
I tried to get spoilers out of Tayshia any way I could. No luck. But she said as far as matters of her heart are concerned, she is happy and that she got what she came for. So the decoding of that answer begins tonight at 8 Eastern on ABC. Michael?
All right, one season of Bachelor, maybe both of them find love. That was a Bachelorette. And the Bachelorette is back to its regular time slot tonight at 8 p.m. here on ABC. Robin, before we get to that, I just want to give them a preview. So you accept this one?
Don't do that, Michael Buell. They'll put you on the show. But before we do that, we have GMA at the CMA Awards with a preview of our annual special leading up to Country Music Big Night with unprecedented access to the stars. We got to look at how the pandemic has impacted the entire country music community and how the industry is moving forward.
Real quick, finish the sentence. This year has been...
Oh, wow.
Oh my God.
Let me think.
Well, this year's been enlightening, unpredictable.
I mean, country music in 2020 is what?
Stronger than a garlic milkshake. It's true. It's true. We actually quarantined with some of our best friends. I had like 8 boys I had to cook for 2 months. So I'm an official grill master. Is it like a James Beard chef? Maybe I got my Michelin stars. We were able to put in a garden, grow an enormously large corn patch. Little tip for you guys: never get bored during the pandemic and plant 4 acres of sweet corn. And going to bed at night. Oh Lord. Sleeping in my bed every night with my wife. I mean, there was a time there I was like literally getting into bed at 8:15 every night, watching a couple of shows together, and I've never had that really ever in our marriage. It was trying at times.
We still haven't killed each other. Once a couple times.
But, it was fun. I think she's probably excited for me to get back on the road a little bit. I remember a couple of years ago spending time with Luke and his wife out there at the farm for this special. And this year, the unprecedented access again, all these stars, led to some raw and emotional moments where they discussed the reality of living through the pandemic. Also, they looked there about the racial unrest across the nation, showing a really personal side to these stars that they don't normally reveal. They really opened up. See it right there. Yeah, that's the 2020 special Country Strong 2020 countdown to the CMA Awards. It's tonight at 10 p.m. NBC.
Now we're going to turn to that big night in the ballroom. Dancing with the Stars, saying goodbye to Backstreet Boy AJ McLean and Cheryl Burke. course, but it may have been a breakthrough night for Bachelorette. You have all the details as always. Hey again.
Oh, yes, you said it. Michael, with the semifinals less than a week away, the pressure is on the remaining 6 couples. The last night, the dancers were revving up their rumbas in the battle for the mirror ball. Check this out. An incredible night with the competition tougher than ever. Perfect scores for Johnny Weir and Caitlin Bristow. The Bachelorette's high praise extra special after weeks of tough criticism from Carrie Ann and Elle. Online, many attacking the judge for being too harsh.
I see potential. It's sort of like green light to push them up. Caitlin has great potential. She started off as a great dancer, but now we need to see progress. Honestly, I would probably just say thank you right now because it did light a bit of a fire under us, and I'm glad we could break through that and impress them and Carrie Ann especially.
But ultimately, the Backstreet Boys star couldn't last another week.
I learned really quickly within the first few weeks that yes, it's a dance competition, but there's way more to it than that. Those that are gone and those that are still here moving forward, I wish everybody the best of luck. And still, it's a close race.
Yeah.
May the best man or woman win that mirror ball.
Exactly.
And then ship it to me and Cheryl's house.
Oh. Well, their time in the ballroom might be over, but it's not over for AJ and Cheryl. They're keeping their partnership with a podcast that they'll have called Pretty Messed Up. And AJ says that after his first solo album drops this year, he wants Cheryl to dance in one of his music videos. Michael?
I love it. We even love that card, too. All right, Lara, thank you so much. And everybody, get ready for the Dance with the Stars semifinals and double elimination next Monday night at 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 Central here on ABC. And coming up, Emmanuel Acho is here with us.
Did you know Duracell Optimum can make devices work even better than copper top? This toothbrush brushes quicker. This screwdriver turns speedier. This fan spins faster. Upgrade your devices with Duracell Optimum.
We expect answers.
Mom, what are you doing? The house is still wide open, and I don't even know where we're going. Alexa, lock the front door. Alexa, close the garage. Alexa, navigate Starlight Driving. Getting directions now. Elaine. Amazon Alexa for every car.
That meal looks delicious. You sauteed, you seared, and you served. And you cooked with All Plaid, the original bonded cookware. From Canonsburg, Pennsylvania, straight to your kitchens. We make best-in-class cookware for all your kitchen adventures. Now let's eat. Welcome back to GMA, live from Times Square. And it's Tuesday morning here on GMA with a great guest right now, Emmanuel Acho, the football star who struck a chord with his hit video series, Uncomfortable Conversations with a Black Man. Now he goes deeper in his new book with the same name, and Emmanuel, you see him. He's joining us now to talk all about it. Good morning. It is wonderful to have you back here on GMA, and congratulations on the new book. And it's hard to believe it's only been 5 months since your video series already has over 65 million views. What are you hearing from people, Emmanuel, about it?
Yeah, I'm hearing just a resounding plea for more. It's as if it's never enough. I think people loved the dialogue. They realized there's so much racial tension in America. And Robin, they want to be a part of the solution. They are tired of being a part of the problem. While we have been facing this pandemic of the body, this virus and COVID, there's also been a virus of the mind and racism. And so many people are committed to the effort of changing America's longest lasting plague of racism.
And man, is that where the book comes in? Give you a chance to flesh out the ideas, give people a chance to spend more time with them.
You're exactly right, George. That's exactly why I wrote this book. I don't care so much for clicks. I don't care about sizzle, which comes with the spoken word. I care about substance, and that comes with the written word. See, when I go on camera, people might share it. They might like it. But when you write a book, you give someone a figurative baton to run a relay race towards reconciliation that they can read, that they can carry, that they can pass on to the next generation and the next generation. If we really want to cure racism in our minds, cure racism in our hearts, it doesn't just start with us. What can we do to affect those that come after us? Because racism and racial reconciliation, it's not a finish line that we'll cross, it's a road that we'll travel. So we have to travel it together.
And Emmanuel, in your most recent video, you talk with white police officers about their relationship with the black community. We have a clip of that, of some of the moments at the end of that conversation. Let's check it out.
It's opened our eyes to say, hey,
Sit up,
look,
Stephon.
there is this
Sit
major
up, pay
problem.
attention. You guys gonna start going to dinner.
Perceived by black people when we show up on scene. Having an understanding of the difference there is very important. Can lead us to removing some barriers to communication, which ultimately we want to have.
We can't be part of the solution, it's a part of the problem. And you say this conversation is the one in which you felt the most change. Why is that?
Yeah, Michael, because I said this, proximity breeds care. And distance, it breeds fear. I was in that city, Petaluma, California, 60,000 people, less than 1% black. The first question I asked those gentlemen, I said, have you all ever had a conversation, dinner with a group of black people? And the resounding answer was no. And so they opened up their aperture of understanding as it pertains to color and culture. Because see, Michael, it's not just a color issue we're dealing with in America. It's a culture issue we're dealing with in America. So when you're talking to my white brothers and sisters, how can they fix a problem if they don't know the problem exists? How can they fix a problem if they're not exposed to a different color or a different culture? So seeing as that group of men who are willing to sit down and listen with me don't frequently talk to someone who looks like me, their minds were open and their hearts began to change, and that's what this world needs more of.
The willingness to be open like that, you're so right. And there was another video that really struck me. It was with an interracial family and how white parents who adopted black children, and you said it even surprised you?
Yeah, Robin, I had a resounding plea saying, Emmanuel, there's so many people in my emails and DMs, Robin, saying I'm white raising black children. Help me, please. So I did an episode on it. I asked that beautiful black girl's story, 12 years old from Haiti. Her adopted mother, Jamie, is white. I said, story, do you wish your parents who were raising you were black or looked like you? And Robin, she stared at me with her sweet eyes and she said, no, Emmanuel, I just want someone to love me for me. And when she answered that question to me, when she answered that question to her mother, it was as though she was answering that question for the world. So many adoptive parents who lay their head in bed at night wondering if they're adequate enough, wondering if they're doing enough for their children who don't look like them. Well, that beautiful 12-year-old black girl named Story, she gave the adequate answer, what the world needs. It's
Absolutely. That's what everyone wants. And in your book, you also talk about how white people can be allies. And you have a chapter. In each chapter, you have a talk it, walk it section of the book. So talk it, walk it of being an ally. How does that work?
It's not just enough to talk about wanting to help. The intentions are great, but where is your direction? And that's why I wrote the book, Uncomfortable Conversations with the Black Man. Because, Michael, so many people want to help, but now I'm trying to give them the direction as to how to help. So I say, talk it, walk it, because at first you got to talk it, but then you got to walk it. So all my allies, as I would say in football, my former sport, let's get off the bench, let's get out the stands, stand up and get into the game. The first thing to do to get into the game, educate yourself on what to do. That's why I wrote the book. Now that you know what to do, it's time to do it. Maya Angelou said it best when she said, to know better is to do better.
Man, 2020 has been such a fraught year. You come away from it more encouraged or more anxious? about where we are in racial reconciliation?
Powerful question. I come away from 2020 encouraged, and I'm encouraged because as I look around and I look at people who've talked to me, I got a sweet email from a white woman, 70 years old, named Lynn, and she said, Emmanuel, I grew up with racism around me. I didn't go to school with any Negroes, she said, but after seeing your video, my heart and my mind has been opened. Please don't give up on me yet. I love you, my son, and my brother. And when I got an email like that, George, it's hard not to be encouraged because you realize hearts are starting to turn, minds are starting to change. We just have to persist on and fight this good fight towards racial reconciliation.
And giving people a space as you have, thank you so much, because we're too quick to say that somebody is racist, and we're too quick to say a black person is playing the race card or is too sensitive. And we have to have these conversations and coming together, and what you've given with the videos and now your book. So thank you so much for that, Manuel.
Thank you, Emmanuel. The book is called Uncomfortable Conversations with a Black Man.
ABC News, straightforward.
President Trump is refusing to concede to Joe Biden, and now Attorney General William Barr is authorizing possible investigations into voter fraud, and that's prompted a top prosecutor to resign in protest.
The head of election crimes resigning overnight after Attorney General William Barr issued a new policy to U.S. attorneys, telling them to pursue substantial allegations of voting and vote tabulation irregularities. Investigations of voter fraud would typically begin after state certified results, weeks after an election. The career official, Richard Pilger, writing, having familiarized myself with the new policy and its ramifications, I must regretfully resign from my role as director of the Election Crimes Branch. And now, President-elect Joe Biden's team is threatening legal action if the General Services Administration fails to formally recognize the election results.
It's clear now. There's no mathematical path forward for Trump.
Traditionally, the General Services Administration ascertains the winning candidate, allowing them to access a variety of resources for the transition of power. The Director of National Intelligence says Biden will not receive full intelligence briefings until that happens. The head of the agency, appointed by Trump in 2017, says she has not determined a winner is clear. It comes as President Trump, along with some Republicans, remain defiant about the election results, even though they've presented no credible evidence of voter fraud.
The U.S. surpassing a staggering 10 million COVID-19 infections, the highest number of reported cases in any nation. In the past week, roughly 74 Americans were diagnosed every minute.
We have reached a very dangerous phase in the pandemic.
Every state is reporting an increase in cases.
Governors in California, New York, and other states are now hinting at new restrictions.
Mayor Bill de Blasio with a stern warning to New York City residents.
So we have one last chance to stop a second wave.
That second death wave already crashing over some parts of the country. In El Paso, Texas, hospitals are so full, the state shifted med-surg tents, and in recent days, county officials have added a 10th mobile morgue to help keep up with the climbing death rate.
The Supreme Court hearing arguments this morning on the legality of the Affordable Care Act. 18 Republican-led states are trying to get the ACA thrown out.
21 million Americans will lose health insurance nationwide if the law is struck down. And protections for 54 million people with pre-existing conditions could also be eliminated. The court upheld the Affordable Care Act in two previous cases, but now there's a greater conservative majority on the bench after President Trump appointed 3 justices. The law's challengers, including 18 states led by Texas, are urging the court to rule that Obamacare's individual mandate, which requires nearly all Americans to get health insurance or pay a tax, is unconstitutional. The Trump administration has not revealed a replacement for the law if it's overturned.
A 2-year Vatican investigation finds bishops, cardinals, and even popes downplayed or dismissed reports of abuse for decades by defunct Cardinal Theodore McCarrick.
We publish the report with sorrow for the wounds that the matter has caused to the victims, their families, the church in the United States, and the universal church. The trust of many faithful people in the church has been damaged.
With record numbers of COVID infections sweeping the country, experts say shoppers are starting to stock up again, fearing another round of shortages in stores in the coming months. Grocery chain Kroger announcing on Monday it's bringing back product limits to help prevent those shortages, limiting purchases of toilet paper, paper towel, disinfecting wipes, and hand soap to 2 per customer. Grocer H-E-B is also putting limits on paper products and disinfectant wipes in some of its stores again. Last week on a quarterly earnings call, Clorox announced it is still not at a point where we can fully meet ongoing elevated demand, predicting that the shortages on its wipes and disinfectants will continue through the end of the year. While experts say it's unclear yet if they'll see shortages, they have seen an early surge in holiday mainstays, especially those that are non-perishable, like boxed stuffings and canned goods. Spices, still seeing sky-high sales, are another category that could soon be in low supply.
A new tribute to Alex Trebek, coming from the show's executive producer.
He loved this show and everything it stood for.
The main show honored during the first episode after his death.
He will forever be an inspiration for his constant desire to
Still
learn,
can't hear from those.
his kindness, and for his love of his family.
Fans of the show are looking ahead.
On your retirement, who would you like to see replace you?
Betty White.
Several names already in the running for possible replacements include 2 names previously floated by Trebek: hockey announcer Alex Faust and legal analyst Laura Coates. The New York Post also reported ABC's George Stephanopoulos is eyeing the job, but a source close to Stephanopoulos denies he's pursuing the role. Another possible successor, Jeopardy champ Ken Jennings, who was recently named consulting producer. Jeopardy will air the final 35 episodes featuring Trebek through Christmas.
Chief meteorologist Ginger Z with some really awful photos. I mean, from South Florida. This is Miami Gardens, Florida. North Miami had 8 inches of rain with those fans from Ada, up to nearly 18 inches in Miramar. And so they've been so saturated this year. Miami could end up with the wettest, or close to the wettest year on record. There are places in South Florida that are reporting close to 100 inches estimated on radar. Now, Ada really aided those totals, but now it's all the way northwest of Cuba, still throwing some of the tropical moisture at South Florida, and it will. And that's why through Wednesday, Tuesday, there are flood watches for West Palm, through Hollywood, Miami, through Keys, and back up to Naples and Marco Island. But what I really want to focus on is where's the next? And it's super fast. There's really the answer. So it's going to take its sweet time. You're stationary.
Yeah, talk to your teacher. Those are the ones she gave me to give to you. I don't know why you can't talk to them.
All the way to southeastern Louisiana. Just keep an eye on this. The good news is it looks like it gets resolved a bit as it gets closer, but either way, you could end up somewhere along there with 4 to 6 inches of heavy rain, and that could cause some flash flooding.
Let me do a formal introduction of you. Okay, all those people that have no idea who you are. This is Popcorn with me, Peter Travers. This is Andy Samberg, who is in. You're not going to see a more fun and more, well, you're going to think about things that happen in it to it than Palm Springs. This is you at your very best, buddy. Thank you. This is good. Yeah, thanks. Even if you're living a life of misery and a pandemic, people are loving you everywhere.
That's the hope. You know, obviously when we made it, it was a very different spirit, but it has somehow taken on this new meaning with everything that's happening with COVID and quarantining and, you know, having to live with yourself and figure out what to do with life when you're kind of limited in your options, you know?
Yeah, very limited, but, you know, you have a wife and daughter, right? So you're not alone in this world.
True. I'm much better off than my character now is in real life. Yeah.
So I want you to, before we start this, explain to people what Palm Springs really is about. Didn't you read it there, did you? It's a lie. The movie's basically a lie.
I'll tell you this. When I received the script, one of the main reasons I wanted to make it was so we could shoot in Palm Springs. And I was going to be able to bring the family up there and stay in a rental home, and hang there and go to Melvin's and go dancing. And I love Palm Springs, and it truly was a motivating factor. And then, the budget was the budget, and then we got the California tax rebate, which makes it so if you say it's an LA production, you can't leave the TMZ, the 30 mile zone, and Palm Springs is outside of that, and it became, from a producerial perspective,
Listen to you.
impossible. Yeah, I know, it's boring.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. I'm scared for you, my friend. You've got the jargon?
No, it's over. I'm hoping to just, age out and just produce.
That's right. You have a birthday coming up, so that will be, I do. Yeah. Oh my God. You want to consider what that is.
It's gonna be a quarantine B-day.
Sometimes you just miss people.
Yeah.
Do your wife and daughter still love you?
Yeah, I think I'm pushing it, but yeah, I'm still okay. I ask every day just to make sure. My daughter won't always let me know that she loves me, but I have to just trust the faith.
No, sometimes you have to say it. She's young enough. She has to love you. That's it. It's up until 5 or 6. That's the way it is.
Yeah, I tell her a lot, so she's not confused. It's more just me having to sort of slink into the corner.
She can't see this movie.
No, not even close. No. I will say one thing that it's not. I've been doing a lot of press now. It's picked up, and which is strange unto itself, but that's a whole other story. But the movie is a hard R, and I feel like that maybe is not being discussed enough in terms of like young people that are expecting something a little more networky. There's like sexual situations, graphic content, language, drug abuse.
Yeah, see, you all of that, and you think that's turning people off, but no, it isn't.
Well, no, I just don't want anyone really young to go in and be blindsided and scarred. I remember like accidentally seeing some of Porky when I was like 8 years old and never never really got over it.
So how can you, Andy Samberg, sum up for those people that now have been told that this movie will scar them because of the graphic sexuality, the foul language, drug use, and everything else is in it? Who is this Niles guy that you play?
Well, I would preface it all, and I apologize for dragging this out. I would preface it all by saying, if you already decided you want to watch the movie, I recommend going in knowing as little as humanly possible, because there's a lot of things that would then be surprising and more fun. But if you don't care and you're still watching this answer, there is a...
Well, let's tell the people to just put on a blindfold now. They can use their mask and cover their eyes, and you can just tell us a little bit about what that is.
Whisking them away. They're on the magic carpet of imagination.
That's right. Yeah.
Okay, great. Oh, man. Well, now.
Wow.
I should probably talk a little more quietly, too.
That's right. Just say.
So, Niles finds himself at a crossroads. No, it's a time loop movie.
Okay, see, that was easy. It's not that comes at the end and you destroyed the Sixth Sense. Whenever I talk to you about it, we did this with Celeste and Jesse forever too. You always say to me, I'm not that good an actor. I'm okay. I'm just this, and then you win a Golden Globe for Brooklyn Nine-Nine. I don't think I ever congratulated you on it. Thank you. It's a good thing to do it. Are you less hard on yourself now?
I am less. I think doing 7 years of Brooklyn and a bunch of other stuff that has stretched my range a little bit has made me feel more confident as an actor. I think also working with people like Andre Braugher and some of our other cast
Yeah.
has expanded my idea of what a serious actor can be and is. And part of that is like getting to know them. I grew up very skeptical of the self-seriousness of acting and the craft and all of that as a comedian.
Well, when you work with Daniel Day-Lewis, you're gonna have that mode.
He's retired. It's not on the table.
No, he'll come back.
I'm sure he's dying to work.
Oh.
Possibly. I mean, I'm a huge fan, obviously. I mean, that's kind of what I'm getting at, is I watch things where there's dramatic acting and I'm blown away and I love watching it. And the more I do it, the more I see how hard it actually is and see the value in it, and it makes me both take it more seriously personally and also, by way of doing a lot more of it, take it easier on myself a little bit, because I feel through both improvement through repetition and also through good editing.
Good editing, yeah. So I could just screw up all the time, you know, but the editors will save me. Now, there is in this character that we don't want to give away too much for, but we could say, Kristen Milioti, your co-star too, both of you really, there's something going on there with the two of you that's really good, comedically and also dramatically. I hate to use that word about a comedy, but there's a lot of the sense of what a relationship is.
Yeah.
And how long can we be as people? I think there's just a line in the movie where it says, but can we spend a lifetime together?
Yeah.
Can we spend it?
Yeah. I mean, that at the core of it is one of the main themes of the movie, is how scary it is to take the plunge, so to speak, you know, to really like leap in and have that leap of faith into a real relationship where you give yourself to someone else. It's scary. The foreverness of it is scary, but I think for some people incredibly gratifying and arguably the most meaningful thing you can experience.
Well, as a husband and father, you said exactly the right things. And you never know that when you were making the movie, that they would have a movie where people would go see it and they'd be thinking, what if I had to relive the same day every day, when they're kind of doing that?
Yeah. Yeah. Hopefully it will be cathartic and not remind them of the parts they're not enjoying. It's certainly more relatable than ever. I think, you know, we're all in that loop a little bit right now, no doubt.
But this is a wedding movie, you know? People are always saying it's a wedding movie, how much fun that is. We don't know, so you're not giving anything like this. It's not in the movie. How many versions of that wedding your characters actually already lived through?
Yeah.
You must have done your Daniel Day-Lewis research on it and got that in your head somewhere.
Yeah, it's interesting. Everyone involved with the movie has sort of a slightly different number on it. Like the writer, director, me, Kristen, like, and we agreed to not say what our number is, but it's a long time.
It's a long time.
It's a really long time. And like, you know, at least a lifetime, you know. So that does affect the performance totally differently. It was really fun for me. It was part of the reason I thought it was so fun to play Niles, is he comes across at first as someone who has it all figured out, and, you know, is the master of his domain and all of this, but the real truth is he's completely broken and given up. Like, if you
That's the selling point.
given up.
My character is completely broken. He's given up.
Yeah.
And it might as well be a version of No Exit. That was what I was looking at.
Yeah. I mean, floating in the pool with a beer. That's, for him, that is like giving himself over to, you know, the void.
Okay, we're getting all of the really sell words there. Misery, suicide, all the things we want to laugh at in this day and age. Here in this movie, people know that that's happening.
It's a fun movie. It is fun.
But look, you started this. You know, we've talked a lot about your formative years and what has, you know, what so immeasurably that you've become a huge success. You know, it's part of that. You know, and it's made it, but I want to feel a little from you that when you see yourself in this movie, you could say, no, not bad.
I would say not bad. Yeah.
Whoa, you'll go as far as to say that.
I will say not bad. I mean, again, I think I did a great job of surrounding myself with really good actors, and that helps. You know, like getting to bounce off Kristen and JK. It's not to keep hitting it, but it's the same as getting to run scenes week after week with Andre Braugher, where you're like, yeah, they're gonna elevate whatever I'm doing. Even if I'm doing something really base, it makes it seem intelligently based because they're there. So the implication is there's someone smart that knows that this is base.
Do you still, as a person who was Saturday Night Live for so long, how many years was that?
7.
Creating that? When the show is on, do you still watch it? Or do you get that feeling like,
Oh, I watch every episode.
Every episode?
Yeah, because I watched every episode before I worked there, and when I left, I was like, why would I change anything? It was very difficult at first to watch.
Yeah, but Phil Hader said, I can't do it because I just think of it, I'm not there anymore.
Yeah. There are times where it makes me really crave being there and giving input and doing what I would do with certain things. But ultimately, it's slowly now getting back to just the experience I always had as a viewer, which is like, what are we going to come up with this week?
Well, okay, so now that you have a new birthday coming up, and you look back on your career.
Yeah.
Can you give me the 3 high points of that career so far? Where you, not that it's the best because other people say so, forget the thing, you know? I think it's really all about you looking at you and saying, I did not suck in these 3 projects.
Oh, man.
Come on, you can do it.
That's very tough. I mean, obviously, does getting hired at SNL count? Because that's a big deal.
Yeah.
I mean, that's got to be the first one. That changed my life forever. And then everything SNL-wise could fall under that umbrella. But I'm trying to think less about what I thought I didn't or did suck in, more as like moments where when it happened, I was like, whoa, I can't believe I specifically got to do that, you know? Like hosting the Emmys was a really cool moment. Being like, holy crap, like it's just me by myself up here on the stage hosting the Emmys. That's crazy. It's something I specifically always was like, man, the people who do that are cool and like a big deal. And I didn't think of myself that way. And then getting to do it made me be like, I must be doing something right.
Well, what about the Golden Globe? When you won that, did you say to yourself that you came home with this statue? And did you say, hey, maybe?
Crazy. It was really crazy. It was also weird because the show had just started airing, so it was a kind of a mind. But I mean, we were thrilled, obviously. That one almost still doesn't register to me as real. But you know, I mean, like more recently, we finally did our first Lonely Island tour. And like we played Bonnaroo, which is a massive festival.
It is, yeah.
We went out and played like a 12:30 a.m. slot. We've never toured before, you know, and we walked out on stage and it was like 30-something thousand people singing along to our stupid ass songs and like laughing all together. And I was like, whoa, this is great. So moments like that where it all kind of congeals and you're like, hey, like the stuff we've made has actually reached people and they like it and it means something to them, even if that's something very silly.
Yeah, but see, that silly is crucial.
Agreed. I mean, that's why I do it. It was always my favorite thing growing up and still to this day. So I'm doing what I want to be doing.
I am just personally so proud of what you're doing and what's happened in this movie. It's just really great.
Thank you. That really genuinely means a lot. I know we've talked a lot over the years, and you were very nice to me the first time I went to Sundance, and that was my first dipping my toe into anything like that, and you were very supportive, so I really appreciate it.
Well, then again, you were again working with really good people too, you know?
Yeah, that's always a goal.
That's like a good thing to do.
Yeah.
But if you had to pick one moment in Palm Springs,
yeah,
where you did something, and it doesn't have to be the big scene, because you have a lot of those.
Right.
Yeah, but there are a lot of those. but something where you looked at you in that particular scene and said, okay, you know, this was, I did okay.
There is a scene in it that when I saw it, it caught me off guard because I hadn't seen that specific style or energy from myself before, and it's a scene with Kristen and I next to the campfire. And it's a longer scene, and it's a lot more understated, and there's a lot more pauses in it and introspective kind of moments. And when I watched it, I got sucked into it just as a viewer, and afterwards I was like, hey, not bad. That's different.
I'll give this whole gig another year. You know?
Yeah.
Really do it. We always end in song. So I'm sure you prepared something fabulous for me, you know, that would be special and just geared to this whole popcorn world and the world that we live in when we can't share our popcorn with anyone.
Right.
Except immediate family.
True.
Yeah.
We've been having a lot of popcorn, actually.
Have you?
Yeah. We got the old timey, you know, like the one where you turn the crank.
Yeah, it's not digital popcorn. It's actually analog popcorn.
Analog popcorn.
Yeah. But I'm still not letting you off the hook. Give me something in song.
Is this really something that I've done before?
I do it all the time. And when you only other guys were there, you like picked me up and carried me around and still were able to make up. And now you're sitting there serene, you know, dealing with your power, who you are, and yet nothing is coming to you.
It's like, hey, popcorn. Mix on in like a popcorn and turn a little crank. I'm so tough. And then you put some butter on top. And then watch the West Wing. All right, thank you.
Where that came from, but so great. Oh, really?
Check out the West Wing.
It goes right up there, you know. It really does. And I appreciate it. I'm thrilled that I got to talk to you at a time that I know it's a tough time, but you did good, buddy. So good for you.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.
And so I'm going to make up a song for you later that I'll just sing for the family.
I have these.
I don't get to see it.
No, you know, sorry.
Wireless YouTube thing. For Robert, and he keeps saying that he can't. They talk to the TV.
Julie Powell was a young and beautiful mother, and she just one night vanished. Where is Susan? July 29th, making sure that something happens to me. Our assets are documented. Could you please?
I don't know.
I'll never forget the first time that I met him. A chill just like raced up through my spine. I just shook the hand of a killer.
New details, stunning new interviews.
He ends up revealing the biggest bombshell.
What will happen next? The new 2020 event, Friday night on ABC.
This is PillPack. Every day I have to remember to take my medication. And I hate walking around with all of this in my purse. Now I use PillPack. They deliver everything right to my door, so I never miss my medication. The best part, their service is free. I only pay my copay. Does your pharmacy do that? PillPack, an Amazon company.
How do we celebrate life's special moments without interruption as we work from home, learn from home, play at home, and stay at home? How do we stay healthy, stay entertained, and stay connected? When your world depends on Wi-Fi, Orbi delivers the best Wi-Fi everywhere, so you can do more, stream more, and connect more. In every room, on every device, all at the same time. Never worry about Wi-Fi again with Orbi from Netgear, and stay connected to life.
Enjoy endless high-definition entertainment on the all-new Fire HD 8 Plus. Millions of movies and shows, music, ebooks, and games. An all-day battery. Hassle-free wireless charging. Enjoy hands-free help. Our fastest, most responsive 8-inch HD tablet ever.
President Trump is refusing to concede to Joe Biden, and now Attorney General William Barr is authorizing possible investigations into voter fraud, and that's prompted a top prosecutor to resign in protest.
The head of election crimes resigning overnight after Attorney General William Barr issued a new policy to U.S. attorneys, telling them to pursue substantial allegations of voting and vote tabulation irregularities. Investigations of voter fraud would typically begin after state certified results, weeks after an election. The career official, Richard Pilger, writing, "Having familiarized myself with the new policy and its ramifications, I must regretfully resign from my role as director of the election crimes branch." And now, President-elect Joe Biden's team is threatening legal action if the General Services Administration fails to formally recognize the election results.
It's clear now. There's no mathematical path forward for Trump.
Traditionally, the General Services Administration retains the winning candidate, allowing them to access a variety of resources for the transition of power. The Director of National Intelligence says Biden will not receive full intelligence briefings until that happens. The head of the agency, appointed by Trump in 2017, says she has not determined a winner is clear. It comes as President Trump, along with some Republicans, remain defiant about the election results, even though they presented no credible evidence of voter fraud.
The U.S. surpassing a staggering 10 million COVID-19 infections, the highest number of reported cases in any nation. In the past week, roughly 74 Americans were diagnosed every minute.
We have reached a very dangerous phase in the pandemic.
Every state is reporting an increase in cases.
Governors in California, New York, and other states are now hinting at new restrictions.
Mayor Bill de Blasio with a stern warning to New York City residents.
So we have one last chance to stop a second wave.
That second death wave already crashing over some parts of the country. In El Paso, Texas, hospitals are so full, the state shipped in med-surg tents, and in recent days, county officials have added a 10th mobile morgue to help keep up with the climbing death rate.
The Supreme Court hearing arguments this morning on the legality of the Affordable Care Act. 8 Republican-led states are trying to get the ACA thrown out.
21 million Americans will lose health insurance nationwide if the law is struck down. And protections for 54 million people with pre-existing conditions could also be eliminated. The court upheld the Affordable Care Act in 2 previous cases, but now there's a greater conservative majority on the bench after President Trump appointed 3 justices. The law's challengers, including 18 states led by Texas, are urging the court to rule that Obamacare's individual mandate, which requires nearly all Americans to get health insurance or pay a tax, is unconstitutional. The Trump administration has not revealed a replacement for the law if it's overturned.
A 2-year Vatican investigation finds bishops, cardinals, and even popes downplayed or dismissed reports of abuse for decades by defrocked Cardinal Theodore McCarrick.
We publish the report with sorrow for the wounds that the matter has caused to the victims, the families, the Church in the United States, and the Universal Church. The trust of many faithful people in the Church has been damaged.
With record numbers of COVID infections sweeping the country, experts say shoppers are starting to stock up again, fearing another round of shortages in stores in the coming months. Grocery chain Kroger announcing on Monday it's bringing back product limits to help prevent those shortages, limiting purchases of toilet paper, paper towels, disinfecting wipes, and hand soap to 2 per customer. Grocer H-E-B is also putting limits on paper products and disinfectant wipes in some of its stores again. Last week, on a quarterly earnings call, Clorox announced it is still not at a point where we can fully meet ongoing elevated demand, predicting that the shortages on its wipes and disinfectants will continue through the end of the year. While experts say it's unclear yet if they'll see shortages, they have seen an early surge in holiday mainstays, especially those that are non-perishable, like boxed stuffings and canned goods. Spices, still seeing sky-high sales, are another category that could soon be in low supply.
A new tribute to Alex Trebek, coming from the show's executive producer.
He loved this show and everything it stood for.
The game show icon honored during the first episode after his death.
He will forever be an inspiration.
Robert, are you on break? Are you on match?
His kindness and for his love of his family.
Fans of the show are looking ahead.
About your retirement, who would you like to see replace you?
Betty White.
Several names already in the running for possible replacements include 2 names previously floated by Trebek. Hockey announcer Alex Faust and legal analyst Laura Coates. The New York Post also reported ABC's George Stephanopoulos is eyeing the job, but a source close to Stephanopoulos denies he's pursuing the role. Another possible successor, Jeopardy champ Ken Jennings, who was recently named consulting producer. Jeopardy will air the final 45 episodes featuring Trebek through Christmas.
See, we were all just giving you zoo with some really awful from South Florida. This is Miami Gardens, Florida. North Miami had 8 inches of rain with those bands from Ada, up to nearly 18 inches in Miramar. So they've been so saturated this year, Miami could end up with the wettest, but close to the wettest year on record. There are places in South Florida that are reporting close to 100 inches estimated on radar. Now, Ada really aided those totals, but now it's all the way west of Cuba, still throwing some of the tropical moisture at South Florida, and it will, and that's why through Wednesday evening, there are floodwatches through Hollywood, Miami, through the Keys, and back up to Naples and Marco Island. But what I really want to focus on is where do we go next? And it's nowhere fast is really the answer. So it's going to take its sweet time, nearly stationary this morning, and it's going to inch toward the Gulf Coast through the weekend even. And then the end of the weekend, it looks like somewhere along the Gulf Coast, the storm is very large though. So Florida Panhandle all the way to southeastern Louisiana. Just keep an eye on this. The good news is it looks like it gets absorbed a bit as it gets closer, but either way, you could end up somewhere along there with 4 to 6 inches of heavy rain, and that can cause some flash flooding.
President-elect Joe Biden, I just got to say it again, President-elect Joe Biden has just 71 days for his transition team to prepare to take over. But the current administration is holding up the taxpayer-provided fund to make it happen because they're going all in on voter fraud claims. Let's take a look.
This election is not over. Far from it.
Let's not have any lectures. No lectures about how the president should immediately, cheerfully accept preliminary election results. And the same characters who just spent 4 years refusing to accept the validity of the last election.
There are serious allegations of violations of law. The right standard is that every single legal vote that was cast should be counted, but any votes that were illegally cast shouldn't be counted.
Democrats could give a damn about this. They don't care how Trump lost as long as he lost.
So how do you know if something was illegally cast? And how do you know? I mean, where do you draw the line? I think you mentioned this, Sarah, yesterday. I mean, so does that mean that only the things below president and vice president are no good?
I mean, because there's a whole lot of people on that list that people voted for. So they're okay? Or does that mean Mitch McConnell we got to recount for Mitch McConnell and then recount for whoever else that was talking? I can't even put their names in my head. I mean, Lindsey Graham. I mean, so does that mean we need to recount all of that as well? Because that's not okay? No, just just half, for which half? Oh, just the top half, I see. Just get rid of the top half, because he doesn't like it. That's very crazy. Anyway, Attorney General Bill Barr also broke from protocol by allowing investigators to pursue claims of fraud before votes are certified. So what does this mean? Because they keep counting. He's not close enough to make a real big difference. So what is the point of all of this? Are they just going to keep this going for how long, Sonny?
I think the point of all of it is to sow discord and certainly sow some sort of, to sow discord. And I also think, Whoopi, this is really dangerous because people now are questioning our very democracy and questioning the legitimacy of Joe Biden's, election and as president. And I think that's terrible. What also is very disconcerting is that every serious empirical study shows that voter fraud is not a real thing. I mean, that is just not an accurate thing. It's just non-existent, virtually non-existent in the United States. What does exist in the United States, as we all know, is voter suppression. So the fact that you have someone like the Attorney General of the United States politicizing the Department of Justice is really, really troubling. And you have people like Richard Pilger, a career prosecutor who heads the elections crimes branch in the Justice Department's public integrity section, withdrawing and resigning from that section should raise a lot of alarms, a lot of red flags for the American people, because career prosecutors do not resign their positions. And I worked at the Justice Department. The Justice Department is apolitical. It is very rare for you to know the politics of the chief of a unit, of the line assistant. You just don't know that. And so when you see Attorney General Barr breaking tradition, a 40-year tradition of interfering with an election by the Justice Department and making sure that the Justice Department is now, I don't know, President Trump's personal law firm, the very foundation of our democracy and all our public systems is being attacked from the inside, Right.
So, Joy, when you see all of this and you hear them say, well, this, they've spent 4 years fighting. Didn't we spend 4 years fighting that particular election because people interfered with it, and we knew that the Russians had interfered, but none of us said, now get out. No. Or am I wrong? Did you say? Yeah, I didn't think so. Go ahead.
No. What I was thinking right now is forget about Trump. Let's look at the Republican Party for a second. We're looking at basically a bankrupt party that has no center, has no core. They don't have a philosophy anymore. Deficits, who cares, as long as it's Republicans creating it. The military, well, we can diss the military, even though we said, oh my God, the military. So they only care about two things: power and retaining power and their pocketbook, taxes. That's basically the party right now. So they are fearful of mail-in voting. Lindsey Graham said the following: if we don't do something about voting by mail, we're going to lose the ability to elect a Republican in this country. The coronavirus has shown that mail-in voting on a grand scale works, but it seems to work better for the Democrats, just like the Electoral College works better for the Republicans, even though we won the Electoral College also this time. But those are the things that scare them. So all they can do is what Sonny says: they can suppress the vote, and they can claim that it's all good fraud. Out of the millions of votes cast, only 32 cases, I believe, of fraud were even identified. So it's just spitting in the wind. Now, one more thing. As far as Mitch McConnell is concerned, Georgia is on his mind. Georgia, because if we take Georgia, if the Democrats take the Senate in Georgia, he loses power. He is possessed to keep that power. He wants it. And I think that if they lose power in Georgia, if they win, rather, if they maintain the power, McConnell will drop this whole thing. Because that's all he cares about. He wants the base to be riled up against the Democrats and vote against a Democrat in Georgia. That's what he's all about. So Trump has become irrelevant to us. Concentrate on the Republican leadership now and Mitch McConnell.
Right. So, Sarah, so you think that Mitch McConnell is saying, and all those votes that were cast, some of those votes were cast illegally? I mean, how do you know who was voting? How do you know who's, I mean, you're basically saying that Republicans also didn't come out and vote clearly for their president. I mean, it's just insane when you look at it. Do you think that they are aware they're casting dispersions on their own party as well?
They're hoping that they've confused people enough that they don't make that distinction that we've made before, that while touting the wins in keeping Senate seats and the Congress flipping, or sorry, excuse me, the House flipping, that those votes were okay, but that the ones that they lost were not okay, which is on the same ballot. So I think this counting and recounting is well within their legal rights. And if they want to waste time and resources doing this, they're not going to find anything. So go ahead, do what you need to do. Because right now, Biden and Harris they've moved on. They're starting to attend to the business at hand, which is this pandemic. I'm not surprised these lead Republicans are not doing anything else, because even though Trump is no longer the president, he will remain powerful in that party. And for them to continue to be reelected, they need those over 70 million voters that voted this time for them. Now, the interesting thing is this is all going to be counted. All this legal action will be done on the state and local level. And Republicans in Georgia are saying, you know, this doesn't rise to the number necessary to change the outcome. They say it's hoaxes and nonsense. Like, you guys, like, until we see proof. These are Republicans on the ground in Georgia saying that. So I think that, and by the way, when Fox News starts cutting away from Kayleigh McEnany because they're saying, you know, we can't in good conscience air this, when Fox is the watchdog, I think the right powers are at play here. And so I think it's like a bad breakup when someone's taking the couch, they're burning your clothes. Like, let them do whatever they need to do on the way out. Just get out.
As long as they're
Don't trust Fox.
as long as they're going.
Do not trust Fox.
Yeah. But the other thing that I think is amazing is that people, you know, the taxpayers' money that goes into this fund that helps begin the transition is being held up by the man sitting in office. I'd like to say, I'm sure we could talk to Bloomberg or any of the other folks that have a lot of money to loan us some money so we can start the process while they, you know, putz around and try to figure out what's going on, because it's not going to stop what's happening. It's just, you know, I don't understand what the point is, because you're only hurting yourselves, and he's going to be much more embarrassed when he finds out. In fact, he didn't win. 4 states have already said, show us the proof. Show us the proof. That's all we want. Show us where it's real. And if it's not real, we're not going through with this. So let them butts around and do everything they need to do, you know, because they're not willing to suck it up, clearly. New President-elect Joe Biden isn't the only person poised to turn the tide in America, and that's why all eyes are on Georgia right now. Our next guest is in a heated runoff Senate race against Republican Senator David Perdue. Now, could that help shift the balance
In 95.
of the entire U.S. Senate? U.S. Senate, it may. So please welcome Democratic challenger Jon Ossoff. Sonny has the first question.
Yes, John, thank you for joining us. Well, Joe Biden won the presidency, even though the race in your home state of Georgia still hasn't been called. What was your reaction when you heard the news that former Vice President Joe Biden is now the president-elect?
Hey, y'all, good morning. Thank you so much for having me. And look, I mean, like so many, I took a deep breath and felt relief that we are turning the page on the 4 years of constant outrage and division and scandal, and most of all, the catastrophic incompetence, which has cost so many lives, ripped our country apart, gotten us deeper into this mess that we find ourselves in now. And I think that as the dust settles on this presidential race, we got to recognize we're still in the midst of a pandemic, a profound public health crisis. Hundreds of thousands of lives hang in the balance. Millions of livelihoods and jobs and homes and businesses hang in the balance. And the task now is to mount a competent and focused public health response and get economic relief to people who are suffering so we can jumpstart this economy, get back to normal.
It is a profound fact that the balance of power in the United States Senate is coming down to Georgia, right there. Both Senate races there are going to runoff elections in January, one between Democrat Raphael Warnock and Republican Kelly Loeffler, and one between you, Mr. Ossoff, and your opponent, Republican incumbent David Perdue. Democrats need to win both seats to take control of the Senate and get anything done. With so much at stake, what are the Democrats going to do to turn out the vote?
Well, we're doing everything in our power to motivate people to get back out to the polls. And the sense of enthusiasm and excitement, we are invigorated in Georgia by this recent victory in the presidential race. But we also recognize that in order for us to recover from this pandemic, and in order for us to enact a policy program that will help people, we need to be able to govern. And that comes down to these two races here in Georgia. I mean, the work that's been done in Georgia over the last 10 years, y'all, is just incredible. The work led by Stacey Abrams, voter registration, mobilizing communities, reaching out to voters who hadn't heard from politicians in a very long time. We really have the wind at our backs, and now it's about getting folks back out to the polls for this January 5th runoff.
President Trump has continued to falsely assert that the election is being stolen from him and is pushing for a recount in several states, including Georgia, where he trails by a razor-thin margin. Now Senators Perdue and Loeffler are attacking Georgia's Secretary of State, who also happens to be Republican himself, for a lack of transparency in this election and are calling for his resignation. Do you think there's any basis for these
When
claims?
you grow up, your house is going to be nasty.
I think that they are in disarray because they felt entitled to a cakewalk here. I mean, y'all, when I announced this campaign about 14 months ago, I was telling everybody that Georgia was the most competitive state in the country. And I'm sure that y'all didn't doubt me, but there were a lot of people who did. But it is all that work on voter registration and mobilization and organizing and volunteerism that has made Georgia the most important battleground state in America right now. I mean, that's shocking to a lot of folks who think of Georgia as this sort of GOP stronghold where we can't compete. Now it's the top battleground in the country. And I think that these incumbent Republican senators just felt entitled to an easy dance back to victory. They're in for the fights of their lives. They don't like it, but rather than organizing and getting out the vote to win, they're taking it out on each other.
Now you're right. Georgia has become the key battleground state now. It hasn't gone blue, though, since 1992. And that's largely, I think, because of changing demographics and the work of Stacey Abrams to register Black voters and increase voter turnout. Are you surprised by the numbers you're seeing? I don't think so. But does it signal to you a new political future in Georgia?
It does. I mean, it's a beautiful thing. There's been so much work put into this over the last 10 years. So much hard work. You mentioned Stacey Abrams, all of the amazing volunteers and activists who have made this possible. And it comes at this moment when we really need this fresh start as a country. I mean, I don't know about y'all. The last 4 years have just been so exhausting, so miserable, and not just for Democrats, but for all of us. The constant division and all of the outrage and scandal and insult, it just doesn't have to be this way. We got to take a deep breath and recognize that now we have the opportunity to define a new era in our history, to heal this country, to bring Americans back together, to remember that we're one people, we're all brothers and sisters, and we face a crisis right now, and we've got to come together to meet this moment. And I am so excited that Georgia has the opportunity to deliver these two victories so that we can meet this moment, so that we can chart a new course forward, we can overcome this pandemic, and we can deliver for working families across this country.
Hello, this is Montana Highway Patrol. You're looking for a couple of missing teenagers.
That's right. Last seen in a red Focus.
The steering wheel's getting stiff.
lock the door. We're fine.
Got ourselves a predicament.
The reality is our country can collapse from within.
You see the White Power movement of the march. They admitted neo-Nazis, skinheads, it's meant to incite war.
From the KKK to Oklahoma City to Charlottesville, the new documentary event special. We just need to start talking about race, homegrown hate, the war among us.
This is a real wake-up call.
Streaming now on ABC News
Oh, it's not that. She's probably busy.
So, John, you made headlines during a recent debate when you called out your opponent, Senator Perdue, over his handling of the pandemic. Let's take a look at the clip.
Well, perhaps Senator Perdue would have been able to respond properly to the COVID-19 pandemic if you hadn't been fending off multiple federal investigations for insider trading. It's not just that you're a crook, Senator. It's that you're attacking the health of the people that you represent. You did say COVID-19 was no deadlier than the flu. You did say there would be no significant uptick in cases. All the while, you were looking after your own assets and your own portfolio.
Well, of course, Perdue has denied any wrongdoing, and he says that the Department of Justice, and the Senate Ethics Committee have cleared him completely. The SEC also, but you seem to have rattled him because. Is he going to do another debate with you before the runoff? Now you're scared of, I think.
Y'all, he did not enjoy that at all. He canceled our next debate just hours after that. And I just challenged him to 3 more yesterday. I'm ready. Hey, Senator Perdue, if you watch The View, I'm ready to debate. Come out to a public forum, defend your record in office, and let's hear your vision for representation of this state. I mean, see, y'all, Senator Perdue hadn't held a public town hall meeting in 6 years. He feels entitled to this seat, but this is not David Perdue's Senate seat. This is the people's Senate seat, and the people are going to come out and vote on January 5th to claim it.
Well, even after pouring money into key races, $200 million in Kentucky and South Carolina alone, Democrats failed to flip several seats in the Senate and even lost some in the House. Now, it wasn't exactly the blue wave many of us had expected. What did Democrats get wrong, and what needs to change going forward?
Well, you'll have to forgive me for not having that sort of national analysis. What I can tell you is what's working in Georgia. And that is a relentless focus on how we get out of this mess. I mean, yeah, y'all asked me kind of what I felt when I learned that President-elect Biden had won, and I was like, oh, this is hope. What I felt was hope, that we can get out of this crisis, not just the pandemic, but also this terrible headspace we've been in as a country, the way that our spirit has been corrupted by the last 4 years of nonsense. We have an opportunity now to launch a new era for this country that can bring us back together. We can look out for each other again. We can make sure everybody,
tired of all this fucking glitching.
Everybody has the opportunity to dignified work that pays a living wage. Where every family has access to affordable health care and affordable housing. We can make sure every American has equal justice under the law, regardless of race and regardless of class. That's the kind of country that I want to live in. That's the kind of country that we believe in as Americans. That's why my mother came here as an immigrant when she was 23 years old, was because she believed in that America. So let's build that America again. Let's make it better and stronger, more just, and more prosperous.
All right. Listen, our thanks to you, John Ossoff. You come back anytime to The View. We love talking to you.
This is what being rock is all about. This is ABC News Live, the number one 24/7 streaming news source. ABC News. Imagine breaking news, live events as they happen, streaming live, non-stop, straight to you. Imagine instant, incredible access to the most compelling live
video that original, on the edge, breakthrough storytelling from ABC News, National Geographic, ESPN, all the most innovative storytellers, all designed differently for you to stream straight to any stream whenever you want, free. And imagine the most celebrated, epic live events and moments, all playing out right before your eyes. Go there now. With ABC News Live. Think of it as your live streaming adrenaline rush. Look at all of the smoke here. Real, raw, live. No matter where the next step takes us, we're taking it. It's right next to you. And go deeper inside the groundbreaking exclusives from the campaign trail. Only ABC News gets. Behind the scenes, exclusive access. Take you inside for an extraordinary tour here at ABC News Live. This is it. It's time to go there. Be there. Experience it. Live on the scene. Maybe that's why, in just 1 year, ABC News Live is already America's #1 live streaming news. And imagine this, it's free. Watch ABC News Live right now and anytime. Streaming on Roku, Hulu, Facebook, and abcnews.com.
ABC News Live.
Streaming everywhere, right to you. Tomorrow, the morning of the country's biggest event, the stars, the inside presidents of buses, even the first 2 CMA awards will all happen on Good Morning America on ABC.
President Trump is refusing to concede to Joe Biden, and now Attorney General William Barr is authorizing possible investigations into voter fraud, and that's prompted a top prosecutor to resign in protest.
The head of election crimes resigning overnight after Attorney General William Barr issued a new policy to U.S. attorneys, telling them to pursue substantial allegations of voting and vote tabulation irregularities. Investigations of voter fraud would typically begin after state certified results, weeks after an election. And now President-elect Joe Biden's team is threatening legal action if the General Services Administration fails to formally recognize the election results. Traditionally, the General Services Administration ascertains the winning candidate, allowing them to access a variety of resources for the transition of power. The Director of National Intelligence says Biden will not receive full intelligence briefings until that happens. The head of the agency, appointed by Trump in 2017, said she has not determined a winner is clear.
Is the State Department currently preparing to engage with the Biden transition team? And if not, at what point does a delay hamper a smooth transition or pose a risk to national security?
There will be a smooth transition to a second Trump administration.
Right. We're ready. The world is watching what's taking place. We're going to count all the votes. When the process is complete, there'll be electors selected. There's a process. The Constitution lays it out pretty clearly.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Diane Macedo. We're coming on the air because President-elect Joe Biden is about to deliver remarks in Wilmington, Delaware, about the Trump administration's lawsuit to overturn the Affordable Care Act. He's expected to discuss his plan for health care in America. You can see the Vice President-elect is speaking right now. Let's listen. Affordable Care Act. Getting rid of the Affordable Care Act will take us backward to a time when people could charge a woman more for her health care than they can charge a man, simply because she's a woman. To a time when pregnancy could be considered a pre-existing condition. It will take away free birth control and contraceptive coverage for women. This is all happening at a moment when our country is suffering through a pandemic that has claimed more than 238,000 lives. And we all know that if the Affordable Care Act is struck down, communities of color would be hit particularly hard. Black, Asian, Hispanic, and Native American, because they are at a greater risk of pre-existing conditions from asthma to diabetes to lupus. And they are also 3 times as likely to contract COVID-19 and twice as likely to die as others. Now, I know we all know that we just had an election in America, an election where healthcare was very much on the ballot.
Our country had a clear choice in this election. Each and every vote for Joe Biden was a statement that health care in America should be a right and not a privilege. Each and every vote for Joe Biden was a vote to protect and expand the Affordable Care Act, not to tear it away in the midst of a global pandemic. And Joe Biden won the election decisively, with more votes than have ever been cast in American history. It amounts to 75 million voices and counting, calling on the Supreme Court to see this case for what it is, a blatant attempt to overturn the will of the people. And the President-elect and I cannot let that happen. And now it is my honor to introduce President-elect Joe Biden.
Thank you, Colin. Good afternoon, everyone. This morning, as was stated, the United States Supreme Court heard oral arguments on the case of great importance to the American people. This case represents the latest attempt by the far-right ideologues to do what they've been repeatedly failed to do for a long time. In the courts, in the Congress, in the Court of Public Opinion, over the last decade, to eliminate the entirety of the Affordable Care Act. Twice already, the Supreme Court has upheld the landmark law in 2012 and again in 2015. And the Congress, expressing the popular will of the American people on a bipartisan basis, has rejected numerous attempts, numerous efforts by President Trump to erase the law of law. Now, in the middle of a deadly pandemic that has infected more than 10 million Americans, nearly 1 in every 32 Americans, with devastating consequences to their health. These ideologues are once again trying to strip health coverage away from the American people. The goal of the outgoing administration is clear from the brief they filed in the Supreme Court. It asserts, and I quote, the entire ACA thus must fall, end of quote. Now, I'm not naive about the fact that health care is an issue that has divided Americans in the past. But the truth is, the American people are more united on this issue today than they are divided. Recently, as last month, a leading survey found that American people want to keep the Affordable Care Act in place by an overwhelming margin of 58% to 36%. 79% of the American people, including 9 out of 10 Democrats, 8 out of 10 independents, and 2/3 Republicans, want to keep the ACA protections for people with pre-existing conditions, which would be eliminated if this lawsuit were to succeed. This doesn't need to be a partisan issue. It's a human issue. It affects every single American family. We can't subvert the growing consensus of the American people based on an argument put forward in the briefs seeking to invalidate the law that even many conservative legal scholars, including in the National Review, consider to be, quote, ridiculous. Let's be absolutely clear about what's at stake. The consequences of the Trump administration's argument are not academic or an abstraction. For many Americans, they're a matter of life and death in a literal sense. This argument will determine whether care coverage of more than 20 million Americans who apply under the Affordable Care Act will be ripped away in the middle of the nation's worst pandemic in a century. Over 100 million people, as the Vice President-elect pointed out, over 100 million people like asthma, diabetes, cancer, could once again be denied coverage. Whether complications from COVID-19 like lung scarring and heart damage will be the next flood of pre-existing conditions that can be used as an excuse to jack up premiums or deny coverage altogether. For millions of survivors who have struggled, won, and fought the coronavirus, fought against the loss of their life. This argument is going to determine whether women, as is pointed out, the ones that will be charged higher premiums. are seniors will see their prescription drug costs go up. And like kids, whether or not they can stay on their parents' plans till age 26. Their annual lifetime payments will be reimposed. So someone can walk in and say, die in peace, you've run out of your coverage. This isn't hyperbole, it's real. As real as it gets, when a family is faced with the awful news of a child diagnosed with leukemia, or a mom forced to battle against breast cancer, an accident that leaves loved ones unable to live the life they've always known, it stops your heart. It stops your heart. It wrenches your entire world right off its axis when that happens. Many of you know that from your own personal experiences. Believe me, I know the feeling, and too many American families do as well. In that moment, the very last thing on your mind, the very last thing should be on your mind, is whether you can afford the treatment. Affordable care was created to put a stop to that inhumanity. It was created to ensure the families, thrust into their worst nightmare of their lives, could focus not on money, but on the fight that really matters. Obamacare is a law that every American should be proud of. It's why people with pre-existing conditions are protected in this country. It's a law that delivered vital coverage, as I said before, for 20 million Americans who did not have coverage. It's a law that reduced prescription drug price costs for nearly 12 million seniors. It's a law that saved lives and spared countless families from financial ruin. So this effort to bypass the will of the American people, the verdict of the courts in the past, the judgments of Congress, in my view, is simply cruel and needlessly divisive. Regardless of the outcome of this case, I promise you this. Beginning on January 20th, the Vice President-elect Harris and I, we're going to do everything in our power to ease the burden of health care on you and your families. I promise you that. As I said, I will protect your health care like as in my own family. We've been unfortunately significant consumers of health care. That starts by bringing on the Affordable Care Act, with the dramatic expansion of health care coverage and bold steps to lower health care costs. My transition team will soon be starting its work to flesh out the details so that we can hit the ground running, tackling costs, increasing access, lowering the price of prescription drugs. Families are reeling right now, particularly the reporters in this room and others listening. You've interviewed a lot of these people around the country as you've gone all over the world, all over the country. Enduring illnesses faced with risky choices, losing their employer plans in droves. Over 10 million have already lost their employer plan. They need a lifeline and they need it now. They shouldn't have to hold their breath. They shouldn't be in that position, waiting to see if the Supreme Court is going to wrench away a peace of mind. They've come to now rely on. So we're going to get right to work, I promise you, addressing the issues that families are talking about around the kitchen tables this morning, making sure that they can get in bed tonight with the peace of mind that they deserve, and fulfilling a moral obligation to ensure that here in America, healthcare is a right for all, not a privilege for a few. So come January, we're going to work quickly with the Congress to dramatically ramp up healthcare protections, get Americans universal coverage, lower healthcare costs as soon as humanly possible. That's the promise I make to you. We're going to fight for your family's health coverage the same way we fight for our own family's health coverage. We want every single American to know, if you're sick, if you're struggling, if you're worried about it, you're going to get going to get through the day, we will not abandon you. That is a promise. We'll not leave you to face these challenges alone. We're going to get through this. We're going to get through it together. And we're going to build a healthcare system that puts you and your families first, and that every American can be proud of. I want to thank you all for listening. May God bless you. May God keep you safe in this COVID environment, and may God protect our troops. Now I'm told that we're going to take 5 questions. Thereabout.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. President-elect. During the campaign, you said you were not naive about how difficult it would be to unite the country. It's now 3 days after you were projected as the president-elect. The president himself says he has won this election. His own administration has not moved forward to give you access to what you need to do to begin the work of your transition. Just a few minutes ago, the Secretary of State, when asked if he would cooperate with a smooth transition, he said there will be a smooth transition to a second Trump administration. I wonder if you have a message for the president who may well be watching right now, and how do you expect to be able to work with Republicans when so many have thus far refused to even acknowledge your victory?
Well, first of all, we are already beginning the transition. We're well underway. And the ability for the administration in any way by failure to recognize as our win does not change the dynamic at all in what we're able to do. We've announced yesterday, as you know, the health group we put together today. We're going to be moving along in a consistent manner, putting together our administration, the White House, and reviewing who we're going to pick for the cabinet positions. And nothing's going to stop that. And so I'm confident that the fact that they're not willing to acknowledge we won at this point is not of much consequence in our plan and what we're able to do between now and January 20th.
In response to Secretary Pompeo, and I also wonder, you warned during the campaign that as the walls closed in on the president, he would behave more erratically. Yesterday, he fired his defense secretary on Twitter. Are you worried that he's disabling the government? And what are you saying to the world leaders who are calling you at this point about the situation here?
Well, first of all, I'm letting them know that America's back. We're going to be back in the game. It's not American alone. Number one, I've had the opportunity to speak with now 6 world leaders, and the response has been very fulsome, energetic, and they're all looking forward to being able to, from Great Britain to France to Germany to Canada, etc., and Ireland. So I feel good about the ability to. I said when we announced that the next president is going to inherit a divided country and a world in disarray. The reception and welcome we've gotten around the world from our allies and our friends has been real, and a number of other calls to return. And so I feel confident that we're going to be able to put America back in the place of respect that it had.
Mr. President-elect, Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell has suggested today that he may not recognize the outcome of this election until the Electoral College meets next month. Have you spoken to your longtime friend in the Senate, Mr. McConnell, and what do you make of his specific comments over the last 24 hours?
I haven't had a chance to speak to Mitch. My expectation is that I will do that in the not too distant future. I think that the whole Republican Party has been put in a position, with a few notable exceptions, of being mildly intimidated by the sitting president. But there's only one president at a time. He's president. We're going to have the Electoral College. We'll be making their judgment in December. It'll be announced in January. But in the meantime, I hope to get a chance to speak to Mitch.
If I could follow up, without transition funding, will you be able to go through with the proper transition that's needed? Would you like access to the PDB, and will you authorize legal action, or would that be too divisive, do you think?
We can get through without the funding. We're in a position that we feel very good about. There's nothing that slows up our efforts to put things together. Obviously, the PDB will be useful, but it's not necessary. I'm not the sitting president now. And so we don't see anything slowing us down, quite frankly.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President-elect, and congratulations to you both. Have you tried to reach out at all to the president? And if he is watching, what would you say to him?
Mr. President, look forward to speaking with you.
And you say that you are being able to move ahead without information, but to Jeff's point, presumably at some point you will need access to more classified information, secure facilities, and the like. What options are you considering? How will you move ahead if the president continues to refuse to concede?
Well, look, access to classified information is useful, but I'm not, as I said, one president at a time, and he will be president until January 20th. It would be nice to have it, but it's not critical, and we're just going to proceed the way we have. We're going to do exactly what we'd be doing if he had conceded and said we won, which we have. And so there's nothing really changing.
But not ruling out legal action.
No, I don't see a need for legal action, quite frankly. I think the legal action is, you're seeing it play out, the actions he's taking. And so far, there is no evidence of any of the assertions made by the president or Secretary of State Pompeo. Secretary of State Pompeo.
Thank you, Mr. President-elect. Democrats are on track to lose a handful of seats in the House of Representatives. That could make it harder to pass legislation with just Democratic votes. So I'm just curious, how does that impact your plans for what priorities you think you can get through this Congress, especially if the Senate remains in GOP control? And during the lame duck, will you be coordinating with Speaker Pelosi on how she should be negotiating with Republicans?
Well, I've spoken to the leader, and I've spoken to the minority leader in the House. And one of the urgent things that need to be done is people need relief right now. Right now, small businesses, people who are about to be evicted from their homes because they can't pay their mortgage, unemployment insurance. What's going to happen is you're going to see what people don't realize is the failure to provide state and local assistance. We're going to see police officers, firefighters, first responders laid off. And I think the pressure is going to build. But the fact is that I would hope that the president at least has the sensitivity and knowledge and know that a lot of people are in real trouble right now between now and the time we get elected till we get sworn in. And so it's my hope and expectation. I'm sure that the majority, the Speaker of the House, as well as the minority leader, are working right now on the priorities they have laid out.
But do you plan to be active in those negotiations, working with Speaker Pelosi to represent Democrats on the table?
Well, we've been talking, and they know my views. And
then my second question was about the Senate. Do you plan to campaign in Georgia before your inauguration to help Democrats in the 2 runoff races there as they try to flip the Senate? And how important is a Democratic-held Senate to your agenda?
Well, obviously, it'd be much better if we had a tie in the Senate, which means that the Vice President become incredibly important beyond what she already is. But we're going to do anything we can that they think we can do to help.
And does the Democratic Senate help your cabinet chances? Does that change how you consider who you nominate to cabinet posts?
No, I don't think so. I take McConnell at his word. I understand he said that he will make clear who he's prepared to support and not support, and that's a negotiation that I'm sure we'll have. Look, one of the things that I would do as president-elect and when I become president is lay out to Republicans as well as the Democrats who we intend to name for each cabinet position. I hope we're able to be in a position to let people know at least a couple that we want before Thanksgiving, and we'll just work this out. Look, I am not a pessimist, as you know, and I think there are enough Republicans who've already spoken out. I think there'll be many more, not many more, there'll be a larger number once the election is declared and I'm sworn in to be able to get things done. I think they understand. For example, I can't imagine there not being a willingness on the part of Republicans, there's really significant pressure to deal with healthcare. Their own constituencies are in that position, so I'm not, I think we can get enough. Thank you.
Stefan, you don't have your phone, do you?
Sir, what do you say to the Americans that are anxious over the fact that President Trump has yet to concede and what that might mean for the country?
Well, I just think it's an embarrassment, quite frankly. The only thing that, how can I say this tactful? I think it will not help the president's legacy. I think that, I know from my discussions with foreign leaders thus far that they are hopeful that the United States democratic institutions are viewed once again as being strong and enduring. And but I think at the end of the day, you know, it's all going to come to fruition on January 20th. And between now and then, the hope and expectation is that the American people do understand that there has been a transition, even among Republicans who are people who voted for the president. I understand the sense of loss. I get that. But I think the majority of the people who voted for the president, a lot voted for him, a significantly smaller number, but a lot voted for him. I think they understand that we have to come together. I think they're ready to unite, and I believe we can pull the country out of this bitter politics that we've seen for the last 5, 6, 7 years.
And just to follow up on a previous question, how do you expect to work with Republicans if they won't even acknowledge you as president-elect?
They will. They will. Thank you all so very much. Thank you.
You've been watching President-elect Joe Biden make his case for the Affordable Care Act. The U.S. Supreme Court heard arguments today in a challenge to that law brought by the Trump administration. The court is now set to rule on the issue sometime in June. We're going to have much more on this at 3 p.m. Eastern on The Breakdown. Stay with me.
What you're seeing right now is part of the high wall. The section of migrants goes back 2 miles. There is going to be catastrophic damage. Fire has made a run. You can see those flames shooting up into the sky.
We are on the jam-packed red carpet.
All right, guys. This is the 4th weekend of protest.
Watch NBC News on location for Facebook Watch. What's the most innovative daily news podcast out there to listen to every day? Well, the Edward R. Murrow Awards say it's Start Here, the daily news podcast from ABC News. Even the New York Times calls us a top news podcast worth listening to. So if you like getting behind the biggest news stories of the day, inside all the details, the backstory, and what will happen next, then listen to Start Here, the daily news podcast from ABC News. It's like no other news podcast out there. Even the critics agree. Listen free on Apple Podcasts.
This is what being live is all about. This is ABC News Live, the 24/7 streaming news source of ABC News. Breaking news, live events, streaming nonstop, original breakthrough storytelling from ABC News, National Geographic, ESPN, and it's all designed differently for you to stream straight to any screen whenever you want.
ABC News Live.
Streaming everywhere, right to you. ABC News Live. It's that easy to go there.
Ismael, David. You can see just this was your
A couple of names you won't see at the CMA Awards Wednesday night on ABC, Florida Georgia Line and Lee Bryce. FGL's Tyler Hubbard tested positive for COVID-19. He's quarantining in a tour bus in his driveway. Lee Bryce tested positive over the weekend, so both had to drop out of planned performances at the Country Music Awards show. Get ready for some drama on tonight's Bachelorette.
I mean, The Bachelorette. Of course there's drama.
Tasha Adams steps in for Claire Crawley, who leaves the show after finding a fiance in the first 3 episodes. Now it's Adams' turn to find love.
There's some amazing relationships that form, and I don't know, you might cry, you're gonna laugh, you're gonna have all the feels.
Check out her journey starting tonight on ABC. Ariana Grande's position #1. Her new album, Positions, debuts atop the Billboard 200 album chart. It's her third #1 in 2 years and 2.5 months, and that's a record. Billboard says it's the fastest any woman has topped the chart with 3 original albums of new music, not counting soundtrack. And happy birthday to Tracy Morgan. The actor and comedian is 52 today, while Grey's Anatomy star Ellen Pompeo is 51. And that's what's happening in Hollywood. I'm Jason Athens at ABC News, Los Angeles.
The breakup wasn't hard. He knew it wasn't healthy. He knew it was for the best. Deb and Dilly dumped their litter. In a bad relationship with your box? Try World's Best Cat Litter, the naturally safe way to smell less, clean less, and buy less. Love a cat? Switch.
What? Can I just I'm writing wrong?
I know what happened, but I'm not building it.
Why the fascination with criminal trials? Figure out what's really out there.
She revealed she had murdered his family.
I know in my heart that he did this. It's the time of suspicion. The ending's really tough.
You don't know whether truth is going to be difficult to find. Unless you try to find it.
With so much at stake, so much on the line, more Americans turn here than any place else. ABC News World News Tonight with David Muir.
We have made it through another week together.
America's most watched program across all of television. ABC News, honored winner of 4 Edward R. Murrow Awards, including the most prestigious honor, Overall Excellence in Television. ABC News, America's #1 news choice. In a year unlike any other, we ask country music's biggest stars.
Country music in 2020 is
I think what they said is what makes country strong.
Country music in 2020 is
alive and well. It is
raw, emotional, like any other. The ABC special with Robin Roberts tonight on ABC.
Susan Powell was a young, beautiful mother. She just one night vanished.
Where is Susan?
July 29th, making sure that if something happens to me, our assets are documented.
Did you tell your wife? I'll never forget the first time that I met him. The chill just like raced.
How are you listening and paying attention, Stefan, when you're laying down?
More details starting in interviews.
He ends up revealing the biggest bombshell.
What will happen next? The new 2020 event, Friday night on ABC.
Hello, this is Montana Highway Patrol. You're looking for a couple of missing teenagers.
That's right. Last seen the red Focus.
The steering wheel gets dead. Lock the door. We're fine.
Got ourselves a predicament.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for streaming with us on The Breakdown. I'm Diane Macedo in New York.
And I'm Terry Moran in Washington, D.C. ABC News sources tell us that President Trump is starting to plan already for the 2024 presidential run, but still hasn't conceded the election.
That's right. Just moments ago, President-elect Joe Biden spoke in Delaware saying that the transition is still going well underway and that, quote, nothing is going to stop that. ABC's Faith Abubey joins us now for more on this right off the top of the show. Faith, Biden seemed kind of dismissive of the president's refusal to concede, even at one point laughing at the mention of Secretary of State Mike Pompeo's name. What did you make of his remarks?
Right. He sort of just shrugged it off. At this point in the transition, his administration or his team is supposed to already have access to a lot of things, including security briefings and access to money, to even office space. And right now, the Trump administration hasn't been really clear on when they plan to start that process. But when he was asked during this news conference how he feels about that, one of the sound bites that really stood out to me was the fact that the president-elect says, "I'm confident that the fact that they're not willing to acknowledge we won at this point is not much of consequence in our planning and what we're able to do between now and January 20th. The president-elect basically said, you know, right now I don't have to make any specific decisions on national security. It's not until January 20th that I'll have to be making those decisions. So at this point, I wish I had this information, but I don't have it, and it's not critical right now. So he's basically forging ahead with his transition plans."
And Faith, we also heard our own Mary Bruce asking the president-elect if he's considering any legal action over the transition, and he sounded like he just said, you know, he doesn't see that as being necessary right now. Why not?
Well, we even heard from his own campaign, even as late as yesterday, saying that they plan to pursue legal action if it were to come to that. They're still hoping at this point that the Trump administration will start working with them. The numbers show that they are on track to be in the White House come January 20th. So they're hoping at some point the Trump administration will come around and start this transition process. But so far, there's no indication of that. In fact, you talked about the Secretary Pompeo just saying that he looks forward to the Trump administration transitioning back to a second term, which is really alarming because that's not what the numbers show. The Trump administration continues to refuse what the actual numbers are showing and what the results are showing so far. And the Republicans on Capitol Hill are also, they seem to be supporting this idea that this election is not over just yet. At this point, again, millions of dollars of congressionally appropriated funds are supposed to be going to the Biden campaign right now to start this transition, and so far that hasn't happened just yet. We're waiting to see when that process will start playing out.
Yeah, Biden also sounded like he was pretty satisfied with how those legal proceedings are going so far, with so many of them getting thrown out of court anyway. But Faith, you know, despite the whole back and forth, various foreign leaders have already reached out to the president-elect to offer their congratulations to Biden. What have they been saying?
Well, most notably, he's already heard from the British Prime Minister, Boris Johnson, who is considered an ally of President Trump. That conversation lasted about a half hour. And in that conversation, they talked about continuing to build on this relationship, this long-standing relationship between the UK and the US. And they want to talk about increasing trade and also talking about security moving forward. They even brought up NATO. And Boris Johnson even took a step further by inviting the president-elect to a climate summit that is happening next November in the UK. So it seems like world leaders are already recognizing the impending Biden administration, but here at home, Republican leaders have yet to do so.
All right, thanks, Faith.
And today, the Trump team Republican-led states argued in front of the Supreme Court that the Affordable Care Act should be struck down in its entirety. This case comes as the pandemic continues to accelerate, and without any clear alternative for the people covered under that law, the millions of Americans who would lose their insurance if that law is overturned. This case is going to impact every single American in some way or another. And our Devin Dwyer has a closer look at the personal stakes for some of the families facing a lot of uncertainty right now.
For the third time in a decade, the Affordable Care Act is on the line at the Supreme Court.
It's done me a lot of good, and honestly, I wouldn't have would return or were to sign up for insurance.
Veronica Valdez, a 38-year-old mother of 5, is watching the case closely. After losing her job and employer-based health insurance in the recession, she found a safety net in Obamacare.
That's the most important thing, you know, is making sure we're all healthy, and you never know. Having kids also, I mean, you can't take the risk of not having insurance.
Because she's unemployed, Valdez qualified for premium subsidies under the law, paying just $146 a month for coverage for her family. But now, those subsidies, which help nearly 10 million Americans afford health care, could abruptly go away, as President Trump and 18 Republican-led states asked the justices to invalidate the entire law.
Normally, the Supreme Court, when they rule something unconstitutional, it takes effect immediately. But it's really hard to find a precedent of a Supreme Court decision that would have such a sweeping effect on the country.
An estimated 21 million Americans would lose health insurance nationwide if the law is struck down, and protections for 54 million people with pre-existing conditions could also be eliminated.
It's sort of like a giant mouse.
and it just goes up against my chest.
It's a scary prospect for Gene Faltis of New Hampshire, who says his medical chart reads like a horror story of conditions that an insurer could potentially deny.
Cancer, cardiac conditions, pulmonary dysfunction, diabetes, absolutely. I would have been excluded. There was no way prior to the ACA that I could have gotten, any sort of insurance if I was suddenly in the position of needing it through lack of employment.
President Trump and congressional Republicans have insisted there's no need to panic.
Will always protect people with pre-existing. So I'd like to terminate Obamacare, come up with a brand new, beautiful health care.
There's certainly multiple ways to protect people with pre-existing conditions. What you can't do is just kind of wave a magic wand and hope it happens.
So we're going to Andrew State started here with his morning feed.
The uncertainty has Christine Callahan of Ohio deeply anxious. Her 13-year-old son, Andrew, who has an undiagnosed genetic condition, requires $7,000 a month in medical care.
I'm a healthcare insurance board loss leader, but is it fair to say, like, we don't deserve it because we have a need?
Callahan worries ending Obamacare would mean a return to the time when insurance companies could cap payouts if you get sick.
I feel like we're going to come to a point and go back to the days of what is the cost without spending everything we have. I mean, it's a balance of what we do for our daughter and saving for college. If you get that coming to the decision of finances for patient care.
The personal stakes there. Devin Dwyer joining us live now in Washington. Devin, you and I are both on the phone for today's argument. What's your big takeaway? Well, I don't know what you thought about it, Terry, but I mean, you can't always be certain from the orals how the justices are going to go, but it certainly appears like the Affordable Care Act will survive this challenge. For folks at home not following the case, this was about the individual mandate, that requirement that all Americans have insurance, even despite the fact that Congress eliminated the penalty a couple years ago. For more than 2 hours today, they wrangled over that, grappled with that change, debated whether or not it actually harms someone without a penalty, and if so, if it's unconstitutional. The justices also talk a lot about whether it could be severed from the law. Terry, we covered this during Amy Coney Barrett's hearings, whether or not the rest of the law could stand if, in fact, they struck down the mandate. Of course, President Trump and those Republican states say the whole thing needs to go, but it was striking today. Chief Justice Roberts, Justice Brett Kavanaugh, both seemed pretty unambiguous that that individual mandate could be severed. The rest of the law could stand. In fact, Chief Justice John Roberts went so far as to say that while opponents of Obamacare may have wanted the court to kill the law, he said, quote, "It's not our job." Pretty striking, Terry. It was striking. Kavanaugh as well, saying essentially this law is not like a Jenga puzzle. If you piece out and pull out the wrong piece, the whole thing comes down. They said, no, you can just take that piece out, the mandate, and the rest of it will stand. So what do we expect ruling in this case? And one other justice up there, Justice Amy Coney Barrett. What do you think of her?
Yeah, this was the first time we heard from Amy Coney Barrett in a major case like this. Of course, she got so much attention during her hearings for her views on the Affordable Care Act. She's been hostile to it, and today there was no surprise there. I mean, Amy Coney Barrett was suggesting that Congress, they can't just leave this mandate in place. What the opponents are calling a naked command to all Americans, unconstitutional, to have to buy something. So she was harshly critical. The justices will vote on the case later this week, Terry, in secret. Then, of course, they'll spend some time writing those opinions. We expect the decisions to come down sometime early next year, certainly by the end of June. But for all those families you saw in the piece, I think there's good reason for a sigh of relief. It does appear, at least at first glance here, that much of the law will stand. Terry?
Great reporting, Devin Dwyer, in the court and in the country. Thanks, Terry.
And the healthcare debate comes as COVID-19 surges across the country, hitting the upper Midwest and western states particularly hard. Now some hospitals are at a breaking point with ICU beds filling up. Some nurses and doctors on the front lines of the crisis share what their biggest worries are right now.
Nurses are exhausted. We've been working multiple overtime hours, getting very few breaks. If we get a lunch break, it's typically cut quite short.
The hardest part is when I work directly with the COVID patients, that they
are isolated. They don't have any human contact besides us. It's sad to see, and the only contact they have is through a device. In 24 hours, they could be intubated and on a ventilator that they never expected, and they're terrified because it's happening so fast. I recently lost someone that was there for a couple weeks, and you just walk past their room and they're just sitting there scared but hopeful, and they're waving at you, and you're just seeing their oxygen needs go up, and they don't all make it out. We do our best to be there with the patients. We listen while they're hearing. Held up the video chat for a half hour with the patient to have conversations with multiple family members about what he wants done. Items that he has at home. That's a hard call to sit through. I, like everyone else, wish that COVID-19 did not exist.
We're hearing from just a few healthcare workers there as coronavirus cases are now soaring in every state of the country. The total number of cases in the U.S. is now above 10 million, with more than 59,000 currently hospitalized. That's the highest total since late July. The state of North Dakota has been so hard hit, the governor has just announced doctors and nurses who are COVID positive but not exhibiting symptoms can continue working. Now, hospitals there are reportedly at 100% capacity. The governor says allowing COVID-positive medical professionals to keep working is the only way to keep up with demand and is in line with crisis guidelines from the CDC. Joining us now with more on this, Mayor Brandon Buczynski of Grand Forks, North Dakota. Mayor Buczynski, thanks so much for being on with us. If you could explain a little bit, what is the thinking behind keeping COVID-positive health professionals at work?
Well, I think we've had hospital capacity issues. It's not been the beds alone, it's been staffing. And I believe that was CDC guidelines already, so we have been working as a state above the CDC guidelines and keeping those rates.
Steph, are you paying attention?
Carriers separate. They're going to do a good job of keeping them separate still from the rest of the population, but it gives us another staffing force to drop in and really expand the 10 more beds.
You know, we heard an emotional plea from your state's health director a little bit earlier. I want to listen to that for a moment.
This does not diminish the significant additional strain. And primarily the physicians, nurses, and other staff in the hospital. For those of you who do not believe, go and talk to them. Ask them what it's like. Ask them about the impact it has on their family.
That was a few days ago. What do you think got him so choked up? And Mayor, what are you hearing from doctors and nurses on the front lines there?
Well, it's a horrible thing. They're exhausted. You do these jobs for a long time, and then you do it. This is just, it's physical, it's mental, it's emotional. It's been very, very hard on them. And you want to look at the light at the end of the tunnel, and hopefully that's in the back soon. But it's really nice to see someone pass away, especially in the way that they pass. So it's people understand with so many stories and it's a pandemic, it's kind of the fight of our health for their lives. It's a challenge. I'm trying to support our healthcare workers as much as possible.
I know you've also issued an executive order limiting the cost, for example. What else are you considering if these numbers don't turn around?
Well, there's kind of four things left, and that's kind of closing or shutting down or postponing these sports. It's going to be closing schools and university. From there, it's probably looking like businesses, bars, restaurants, health clubs, and then just be stay at home and kind of a shutdown. But, we've been very reluctant to do that without having some sort of funding at the federal level, at the state level, the Swiss branches later on, and those really helpful with the PPP. And some of the funding that help those. We just basically have businesses and employees and workers. And that damage can be bad. So until we get some funding, I think it's going to be harvesting this part of it. Really hoping to see that from the federal government soon.
And another thing that's been discussed a lot lately is mask mandates. Are you considering that?
We've been in place for about 2 weeks now. It's in the Midwest, it's been tough. I mean, it took 6 months for us to get here. We've got an area that's really believed in individual freedom. And North Dakota, we've really done well.
large-scale testing. So that's why it's in the numbers so high.
And Mayor, what's your message to citizens who might resist some of these measures, even the ones you want to see put in place or the ones you're considering?
Well, I would say the local farmers just to stay in the fight, and then the citizens would got to stay engaged with the champions to keep my list leadership this time this year, just people doing some moving behind the scenes, and that starts probably in families and works its way all the way down. So it's just to stay in the fight and keep following the guidelines and do what we can to protect our health workers.
Mayor Berchanski, we appreciate your time today. Wishing you guys good luck there. We know it's been tough.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Good luck to the good people of Brantford. President-elect Biden's team is working to make that smooth transition of the healthcare field, but the agency that's tasked with aiding that transition, they're not cooperating with the Biden team. The Secretary of State says there will be a transition, but not for Joe Biden.
It'll be a smooth transition from the U.S. epic administration.
We'll have more detail and analysis when we come back.
Nick from State Farm. After you saved me so much dough on that Parker promo, I buy promo for you.
Here's the deal, Parker. State Farm offers everyone surprisingly great rates.
Yes, right. Pepperoni pockets, an atomic brown, food dressing.
There's no promo, it's just great rates.
You're a man.
And you want the real deal? Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
The known for our Redskin team, it's really got excited back in 1937. The original Yermak peanut, shell peanut, with skin still on it, and it's slightly sweetened with medicine. That sort of social experience of our product, the frosty beverage, it's just a fun brand and it's a fun idea and it's simple. You can make it what you want, but it always makes people smile.
This is PillPack. Every day I have to remember to take my medication. And I hate walking around with all of this in my purse. Now I use PillPack. They deliver everything. I never miss my medication. The best part is only pay my copay. Your pharmacy do that. PillPack, an Amazon company. So like a broken heart. He knew it was for the best. Deb and Joey dumped it for her. In a bad relationship with your body. That's the natural, safe way to smell love and go. Love a cat. Switch.
My number one priority in the coming 2 months is to try to facilitate a transition that ensures our president-elect is successful. And I have been very encouraged by the, I think, interest in President-elect Trump's wanting to work with my team around the issues that this great country faces.
I very much look forward to dealing with the president in the future, including counsel. He's explained some of the difficulties, some of the high-flying assets, and some of the really great things that have been achieved. So, Mr. President, it was a great honor being with you, and I look forward to being with you many, many more times. So, thank you.
Well, that was 4 years ago today, and that's the way it's supposed to go. Mostly has gone in the 212-year presidential transition, but not this year. Because President-elect Joe Biden's transition team, he says they could take legal action if the agency that's tasked with aiding the process, as the General Services Administration, doesn't recognize Biden's win. There's a law that says they should recognize the winner of the election and then get to work helping them transition. The GSA traditionally provides resources like access to classified information, background investigations, millions of dollars to the winner's transition team. But so far, crickets. GSA Administrator Emily Murphy who was appointed by President Trump, has not recognized Joe Biden as the winner of the election, and it's worth saying that, he's up in the Electoral College and won the popular vote by at least 5 million votes. Of course, there are challenges, and that's the president's job.
Meanwhile, President Trump is refusing to accept those results. His campaign is filing lawsuits challenging ballot counts without evidence. The Justice Department official in charge of elections has also resigned after the Attorney General authorized investigations into the election before those results are certified. The move is a reversal of long-standing policy. Also, Secretary of State Mike Pompeo was asked today whether the State Department will assist with a smooth transition. And here's a listen to what he said.
We transition to a second Trump administration. Right. We're ready. The world is watching what's taking place here. We're going to count all the votes. When the process is complete, there'll be electors selected. There's a process. The Constitution lays it out pretty clearly.
So, Secretary of State Mike Pompeo mentioning a second Trump term there.
Maybe joking about it, but hey, it may not be a joke. ABC News political director Rick Klein, political analyst Matthew Dowd joining us now to figure this out. And Rick, let me begin with you, although you can both chime in. Can you just explain how much of a turnaround in the vote it would take for Donald Trump to have a second term, and what's going on here once you look at the scale of that?
Well, everyone likes to talk about Florida 2000. This is not Florida 2000, and for a lot of reasons, it's not even close. In Florida, it was one state and about 500 votes separated the candidates. In this case, it is 4 or 5 states, depending on the size that Donald Trump would have to turn around. And at a minimum, it's 10,000 votes, and in some states, upwards of 50 or 60,000 votes. And there hasn't been a shred of evidence introduced in the public domain or in court that would suggest that there's any number of votes that are likely to be overturned. This has, from the start, Terry, been a political strategy, not a legal strategy. And even now, a week after the election, there is nothing in any courthouse in America that would seriously undermine the vote counts that continue to proceed at the state level. Period. Full stop. This is not the same.
Matt,
I'm sorry, Diane.
That's okay. Matt, just curious, what you make of Secretary Pompeo, given what Rick just explained. What do you make of these comments saying there'll be an orderly transition to a second Trump administration?
Well, my sense is he was trying to be funny at a not funny time. I mean, that's all I can say. I think Mike Pompeo is smart enough to know what Rick just said. I mean, this race is not even as close as it was. There's further distance between this race, between Joe Biden and Donald Trump, than there was between Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton. So I think a number of senators are sort of playing this game right now. They know deep in their hearts that Joe Biden is going to be president on January 20th. Mike Pompeo knows it. My guess is most people in the White House know it because of the situation here. We'll play this out. And as Rick said, I was in the middle of the Florida stuff working for George W. Bush. This isn't the same. After the first official ballots were done, it was less than 1,000 votes. Then a recount. So George Bush, it wasn't like there was a fight over the problem of fraud. It was just a question of what was the recount going to yield. And I think Joe Biden would be like, oh, fine, have a recount, do whatever you want in these states. I don't think they're going to fight a recount they'll be about. So I think everybody is sort of intense. They've been stressed the last 4 years. I don't think the Republicans want to buck the president in the middle of this emotional time. But everybody deep down knows what the answer is.
Well, I wonder, Matt, except for the millions of people who put their faith in Donald Trump, thought he was going to win, are shocked that he's now being told by the leadership of the Republican Party, by conservative media, that the election has been stolen. That may be a kabuki game in Washington to protect Donald Trump's fragile ego. But for a lot of people, maybe it's eroding their confidence in the democracy.
I'm on my phone right now.
Well, I think it's awful to what's been going on, and basically accusing various states, both Republican and Democrat around the country, that they somehow partook in fraud. Let me give you a perspective, though. There are a number of Trump supporters around the country that buy into this. But I live in a town that voted for Donald Trump. The flags are down. They're not running around with banners in their cars. I've talked to a number of them. They basically concede that Joe Biden is going to be president. They're ready to move on, and they want to know what my favorite side at Thanksgiving is. And so that's most Trump voters right now. There is a segment, but most Trump voters have already moved on.
I'm just marking Kabuki down on my breakdown bingo card over here. Excuse me for 1 second. Rick, when you look at the possibilities of how this plays out, you know, we heard from Joe Biden just a little while ago, essentially saying that so far the president's refusal to concede doesn't affect much. They're continuing with the transition as planned regardless. So what happens if the president and the GSA continue to resist this? At what point does it become a problem?
Joe Biden is the least panicked Democrat in America right now. He is full of the cucumber about all of this stuff, because he knows that the work of the transition is going to proceed. He knows what it's like to be in the White House. His team knows that they're preparing for this. Yes, there are a lot of logistical issues. There are a lot of financial issues that surround it. But as he even said, it'd be nice to have the intelligence, but one president at a time. He can do the job starting January 20th. He's very calm about it. And I thought it was so critical in that news conference earlier today, guys, is that you have a president-elect looking to turn down the temperature, to dial it back, to talk again about reaching out to Republicans, ask explicitly, how can you work with these Republicans if they're not going to accept their election? He just made, I think, this a relevant point that we're going to get there. He's making another point that procedurally, we're not at a point where anyone has to accept an election if they don't want to. We haven't had certified results out of the states. He has complete and utter faith in the process to work its way through. And so far, the institutions of you have states conducting their own elections and now doing their own counts. You have courthouses that are ready here in the in-law challenges. At the end of the day, there will be a certified winner. It will almost certainly, almost positively be Joe Biden. He is certain of that fact, and he doesn't feel the need to pass.
And when asked what he'd say to President Trump, he didn't troll him. He said, I look forward to talking with you, Mr. Trump, Mr. President. And Matt Dowd, it's stuffing for me, my mom's stuffing. And Rick Klein, thanks very much. And that does it for us here on The Breakdown. I'm Terry Moran.
And I'm Diane Macedo. We'll see you back here tomorrow at 3 p.m. Eastern. Have a great day.
And I just figured that out.
President Trump is refusing to concede to Joe Biden, and now Attorney General William Barr is authorizing possible investigations into voter fraud, and that prompted a top prosecutor to...
After Attorney General William Barr issued a new policy to U.S. attorneys, telling them to pursue substantial allegations of voting and vote tabulation irregularities. Investigations of voter fraud would typically begin after states certify results, weeks after an election. And now President-elect Joe Biden's team is threatening legal action if the General Services Administration fails to formally recognize the election results. Traditionally, the General Services Administration ascertains the winning candidate, allowing them to access a variety of resources for the transition of power. The head of the agency, appointed by Trump in 2017, says she has not determined a winner is clear.
The fact that they're not willing to acknowledge we won at this point is not of much consequence in our plan and what we're able to do between now and January 20th.
Is the State Department currently preparing to engage with the Biden transition team? And if not, at what point does a delay hamper a smooth transition or pose a risk to national security?
There will be a smooth transition to a second Trump administration. Right, we're ready. The world is watching what's taking place. We're going to count all the votes. When the process is complete, there'll be electors selected. There's a process. The Constitution lays it out pretty clearly.
The U.S. surpassing a staggering 10 million COVID-19 infections, the highest number of reported cases in any nation. In the past week, roughly 74 Americans were diagnosed every minute.
We have reached a very dangerous phase in the pandemic.
Every state is reporting an increase in cases.
Governors in California, New York, and other states are now hinting at new restrictions.
Mayor Bill de Blasio with a stern warning to New York City residents.
So we have one last chance to stop a second wave.
That second death wave already crashing over some parts of the country. In El Paso, Texas, hospitals are so full, the state shipped in med-surg tents, and in recent days, county officials have added a 10th mobile morgue to help keep up with the climbing death rate.
The Supreme Court hearing arguments this morning on the legality of the Affordable Care Act. 18 Republican-led states are trying to get the ACA thrown out.
21 million Americans will lose health insurance nationwide if the law is struck down. And protections for 54 million people with pre-existing conditions could also be eliminated. The court upheld the Affordable Care Act in 2 previous cases, but now there's a greater conservative majority on the bench after President Trump...
I hear you playing it there!
The law's challengers, including 18 states led by Texas, are urging the court to rule that Obamacare's individual mandate, which requires nearly all Americans to get health insurance or pay a tax, is unconstitutional. The Trump administration has not revealed a replacement for the law if it's overturned.
A 2-year Vatican investigation finds bishops carved decades by defrocked Cardinal Theodore McCarrick.
Publish the report with sorrow for the wounds that the matter has caused to the victims, the families, the Church in the United States, and the Universal Church. The trust of many faithful people in the Church has been damaged.
With record numbers of COVID infections sweeping the country, experts say shoppers are starting to stock up again, fearing another round of shortages in stores in the coming months. Grocery chain Kroger announcing on Monday it's bringing back product limits to help prevent those shortages, limiting purchases of toilet paper, paper towels, disinfecting wipes, and hand soap to 2 per customer. Grocer HEB is also putting limits on paper products and disinfectant wipes in some of its stores again. Last week, on a quarterly earnings call, Clorox announced it is still not at a point where we can fully meet ongoing elevated demand, predicting that the shortages on its wipes and disinfectants will continue through the end of the year. While experts say it's unclear yet if they'll see shortages, they have seen an early surge in holiday mainstays, especially those that are non-perishable, like boxed stuffings and canned goods. Spices, still seeing sky-high sales, are another category that could soon be in low supply.
A new tribute to Alex Trebek, coming from the show's executive producer.
He loved this show and everything it stood for.
The game show icon honored during the first episode after his death.
He will forever be an inspiration for his constant desire to learn, his kindness, and for his love of his family.
Fans of the show are looking ahead.
Upon your retirement, who would you like to see replace you?
Betty White.
Several names already in the running for possible replacements include 2 names previously floated by Trebek: hockey announcer Alex Faust and legal analyst Laura Coates. The New York Post also reported ABC's George Stephanopoulos is eyeing the job, but a source close to Stephanopoulos denies he's pursuing the role. Another possible successor, Jeopardy champ Ken Jennings, who was recently named consulting producer. Jeopardy will air the final 35 episodes featuring Trebek through Christmas.
Meteorologist Jim Z with some real awesome photos. Coming from South Florida, this is Miami Gardens, Florida. North Miami has 8 inches of rain with a Spanish tornado, up to nearly 18 inches in Miramar. And so they've been so saturated this year. Miami could end up with the wettest or close to the wettest year on record. There are places in South Florida that are reporting close to 100 inches estimated on radar. Now, Ada really aided those totals, but now it's all the way northwest of Cuba, still throwing some of the tropical moisture in South Florida, and it will, and that's why through Wednesday evening there are flood watches from West Palm through Hollywood, Miami, Cities, and back up to Naples and Marco Island. But what I really want to focus on is where does it go next? And it's nowhere fast is really the answer. So it's going to take its sweet time, nearly stationary this morning, and it's going to inch towards the Gulf Coast through the weekend even, and then the end of the weekend, it looks like somewhere along the Gulf Coast. The cone is very large still, so Florida Panhandle all the way to southeastern Louisiana. Just keep an eye on this. The good news is it looks like it gets absorbed a bit as it gets closer, but either way, you could end up somewhere along there with 4 to 6 inches of heavy rain, and that could cause some flash flood.
Think about what Garrick said about errors. He directed the darkness in order to help her people, and now he
Hi, my name is Delilah Leon. I requested online and paid for my transcripts. My order number is 28449917. Again, my name is Delilah Leon. So please give me a call back at 559-347-1280. Thank you.
Oh my goodness, you're beautiful. Oh my goodness. It's still right here underwater. Oh my goodness, you're beautiful. Oh my goodness. It's still right here underwater.
Get on the camera.
My name that the darkness could change a person that much without them noticing.
Beautiful mother. She just one night vanished. Where is Susan?
July 29th, making sure that if something happens to me, our assets are documented.
Did you pray your wife? I'll never forget the first time that I met him. The chill just like raced up through my spine. I just shook the hand of the killer.
Details started in interviews.
He ends up revealing the biggest bombshell.
Next, the new 2020 event, Friday tomorrow, the morning of country's biggest night. The stars, the inside buzz and surprises, even the first 2 CMA awards will all happen on GMA at the CMAs. Good morning, America. Plus, a Chef Genie Hunger one-pot miracle meal just for you tomorrow on GMA ABC.
A new study suggests that smoking less will probably not have the positive effects people hope for. Researchers from Columbia University presented new data at the European Respiratory Society International Congress. They analyzed rates of lung disease in social smokers, people who smoked less than 10 cigarettes per day, versus those who smoked more than 20 cigarettes per day. They found the risk of lung cancer death for light smokers was not substantially lower, only 2/3 that of heavy smokers. This means that cutting down on cigarettes won't have the same impact on your health that quitting completely will. If you want to learn more about quitting, reach out to a professional for help. With this Medical Minute, I'm Alex Perchet, ABC News.
names you won't see at the CMA Awards Wednesday night on ABC, Florida Georgia Line and Lee Bryant. FGL's Kyler Hubbard tested positive for COVID-19. He's quarantined in his tour bus in his driveway. Lee Bryant tested positive over the weekend, so both had to drop out of planned performances at the Country Music Awards show. Get ready for some drama on tonight's Bachelorette.
I mean, it's a Bachelorette. Of course there's drama.
Tasha Adams steps in for Claire Crawley, who leaves the show after finding a fiancé in the first 3 episodes. Now it's Adams' turn to find love.
There's some amazing relationships that form, and I don't know, you might cry, you're gonna laugh, you're gonna have all the feels.
Check out her journey starting tonight on ABC. Ariana Grande's position #1. The new album, Position, debuted atop the Billboard 200 album chart. It's her third #1 in 2 years and 2.5 months, and that's a record. Billboard says it's the fastest any woman has topped the chart with 3 original albums of new music. Now, happy birthday to Tracy Morgan. The actor and comedian is 52 today, while Grey's Anatomy star Ellen Pompeo is 51. And that's what's happening in Hollywood. I'm Jason Atkins at ABC News, Los Angeles.
The average waiting time for a parent who's worried that their child might have autism is about a year. So how do we come up with an app to detect early symptoms of autism? We can use computer vision analysis to assess things every minute, every hour that you're able to implement those strategies that's helping your child learn that social development and learn it with you as a parent. That is really rewarding.
Introducing Mini, the new indoor smart security camera from Blink. Mini, light, but tiny, which means you can place it just about anywhere inside your home. You listen and talk, hey guys, right from the Blink app on your smartphone. You can even get alerts whenever motion is detected. So whether it's an unexpected intruder or a dog walker you forgot was coming, you can protect what matters most. Mini makes smart home security simple and affordable.
These are my firefighter friends, Fiona and Frankie. Today, we have a big rescue. I turned my fire truck into a big fire station. So cool! We trained and had fire drills. Then when we were sleeping, we got a call. Uh-oh, a building is on fire. We're on our way. Firefighters to the rescue. We saved the day. The Helping Heroes Fire Station. Part of a fun-filled family of toys from VTech. Available now. Each sold separately. Batteries required.
Tomorrow, the morning of
country's biggest night. The stars, the inside buzz and surprises, even the first 2 CMA awards will all happen on Good Morning America on ABC. ABC News. Straightforward. What do you need to know right now on GMA3? COVID-19 deaths and cases climbing sharply, surging to record levels with at least 48 states and territories swinging upward. President-elect Biden taking aim at the virus as outgoing President Donald Trump digs in on his election outcome denial with unfounded fraud claims.
The victory making history. The former Tacoma mayor, now the first black representative from Washington state, and the first Korean-American woman elected to Congress. Turning the page, we'll meet the woman determined to get stories celebrating diversity into the hands of teachers across the country.
It's so important for students and for children to be reading diverse books as kids because these are their formative years.
COVID phase, with pandemic and election stress, anxiety, and those extra cocktails, are putting years of what you're seeing in the mirror. Ways to erase it from an expert dermatologist.
Plus, freedom is possible when we begin to admit the truth. The revolutionary philosophy from ex-NFL linebacker Emmanuel Acho, author of Uncomfortable Conversations with a Black Man, some key approaches to addressing systemic racism.
And Darius Rucker performs just for us. A taste of what's to come at the 54th annual CMAs.
Now from Times Square, TJ Holmes and Amy Robach with What You Need to Know.
What do you need to know that I got sleep last night thanks to you guys? And I am just a different person.
Twinkling. Yeah, they're twinkling.
Compliment?
Yeah, it is.
Well, welcome to our here for What You Need to Know on the Tuesday Magic Begins.
Yeah, we are certainly happy everyone's here, and there's, of course, no shortage of news to talk about. We're joined, as always, by ABC Chief Medical Correspondent Dr. Jen Ashton, and we are tracking all of the day's major developments. So let's get right to the latest coronavirus numbers from Johns Hopkins University. Now, more than 10 million confirmed cases here in the U.S., with at least 238,000 American lives lost, as close to 4 million Americans recover.
And with all that news, I've got you great news, some would say. At least not very optimistic you can be about this news, about the Pfizer vaccine, 90% efficacy. But you also got some news now about a possible treatment for the vaccine.
So yesterday, optimism
Hey, baby.
prevention. At the end of the day, we got some encouraging news about treatment. So what has happened
playing
is the
Xbox.
FDA has granted EUA, emergency use authorization, for an antibody treatment, immune therapy. It is a
Playing Xbox, baby.
of hospital use. That is significant for COVID-19 patients 12 years of age or older at risk for severe disease. So again, potentially really important for those who have obesity or elderly people. It is administered as soon as possible after receiving a positive test or developing symptoms. Here's the caveat. It does
You done with school?
intravenously, IV route, no out-of-pocket costs for patients, but as sure as the FDA is really trying to be aggressive about preventing COVID cases from being so severe that patients would need hospitalization. It's amazing. How acceptable is it, though, to patients who would be eligible for this? Well, again, there's good news and bad news there. The drug maker...
Dang, you call right at you. As soon as you finish, you call me? What? It's 1 o'clock, man.
For 1 million
Yeah.
patients, but we're seeing 100,000
Well, I got up
cases in this
early.
country.
I
Every
got up
summer,
about
it becomes an issue of supply and demand.
59 years
Once
old.
again, we appreciate it as always. Thank you. We're going to turn now to ABC Chemical in Washington for the latest headlines for us. Nice to see you here. Good afternoon.
So it actually
Oh, we're taking it. Hopefully I have a little twinkle in my eye too, Amy. You do. Nice to have a new week. Okay, good. Well, we begin with the Biden transition as it goes into high gear this week. The president-elect's team said...
What you have for lunch, baby?
On the table, if the General Services Administration doesn't recognize the incoming administration,
Spaghetti.
now, normally a winning presidential tickets team gains access to a variety of resources and to take profits, but so far,
Some what?
the USA administration
Had some what?
I have a shower with
has not
love.
moved
Oh, okay.
with
But not to pray, mommy, not cook.
Waves to the Justice Department after Attorney General William Barr, who has been accused of playing politics in the past, cleared the way for the Justice Department to investigate unsubstantiated alleged voting irregularities surrounding President Trump's unfounded fraud claims. And as that news came forward, the head of the department's election crimes branch is stepping down from his position in protest. Federal and state courts have ruled 10 times in the past week against the administration's
Who?
due to no evidence of
Maybe.
widespread voter fraud.
Maybe Jesus will.
Guaranteed access to healthcare
Yeah.
now on the line in the middle of this pandemic. The incoming Biden-Harris team expected to address ongoing attempts by the
Yeah. I was streaming. Yeah, I was streaming on Xbox. I mean, on YouTube. No, it's right now. I was streaming right now, baby. Matter of fact. Yeah. Matter of fact, let me turn it off.
23 million Americans.
Yeah.
Heated access to strike down healthcare